show today. We are at no shortage of conversations to be had today. We had a big day yesterday. Yesterday got the opportunity to head on down the road to Clemson, South Carolina, and spend a few minutes with Dabo and the gang down in that direction. Got an opportunity to listen to Dabo talk a little bit about the year upcoming, the year that was, the year he wants to have, the year he will have. And that was enjoyable. I enjoyed that greatly. It was a nice little time. I will give them a ton of credit. And I will give them a ton of credit because those guys always do a spectacular job, man. Like, they do such a good job down there with that event. I don't know what to tell you. I appreciate the effort that they put in every year. It is very obvious that they care about their relationship with the local media. And as a member, card carry of the local media, it is greatly appreciated. It's very nice to have a level of access that not every school provides. It is nice to have a level of access given to the local media that a lot of schools they don't particularly care. They don't particularly care how you feel about it. It's nice. They hook us up with a good lunch. They give you, direct access. In fact, I will say this, and let me start with this. Why the hell not? Well, let's just jump right in with this. Yesterday, well, let me set it up first. I have told y'all in many, many shows gone by, I have told you that there is a opinion, I'll say, held about Dabo Swinney by a large chunk, if not majority, of the rest of the country. That he's a little bit of a goofball, that he's a little bit hokey, that, he's just kind of a yokel. And that's an opinion that's held as somebody who is broadcasted in many markets nationally, as somebody who hosts nationally, as somebody that is asked to come on shows around the country and be a college football guy. And I know that drives some of you nuts. All right. I get it. I understand. I get it. If you think I suck, I suck. Sometimes I think I suck. What do you want? I get an opportunity. I am exposed very frequently to thoughts and opinions about the Clemson Tigers, about Dabo Swinney. Because ordinarily when I am brought on to do a college football segment on shows nationally and regionally in other parts of the country, usually when I am brought on to do these segments, it is to talk Clemson or it is to talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks. And so I get exposed to these thoughts. Hey, Rob, people around here are saying this about Dabo. They're saying that about Clemson. What's your thoughts on that opinion? And I say on those shows the same thing that I have said to y'all. Who the hell cares? Right? What's it matter? What do I care what a fan in Arlington, Texas says? What do I care what a fan in Missoula says? What do I care what a fan in Seattle says? I don't. And if I'm a Clemson fan, That's how I feel. I don't care what anybody else says or what anybody else does. I very much care about one opinion, mine, and the rest of my Clemson brethren. So, yesterday, because I obviously had to do the show yesterday, my dog Cole Bryson went down there to talk a little, to cover this event. He went down to talk a little bit about the Clemson Tigers to cover this event. And we will have him on the show later. I got down there a little late. I got there in time to have lunch with the rest of the media and then do the Dabo Swinney press conference, which I went live on Facebook, facebook.com/thefanupstate. If you are not a fan of the Fan Upstate on Facebook, if you have Facebook, please like it up, all right? And like it up because you're going to get access. You're going to get access to coverage that you may not get on the air. You're going to get access to coverage you might not get anywhere else. And I think it's a good idea for you to do that. Okay, it's just me. I think it's a good idea for you to do that. Anywho, went live on Facebook, sat there. Dabo was supposed to do about a half an hour with us. About 42 minutes, 45-ish minutes into the event, the sports information director said, all right, guys, you got 1, 2, whatever what it was, minutes left with Dabo. So last couple of questions. And he went on for like another 8, 9, 10 minutes, answering questions, chatting with us, whatever. But what kind of impressed me and what kind of won me over, not that I haven't been won over. I've met Dabo. I've covered Dabo for 4.5 years now. I've interviewed him in every ACC media day. I've interviewed him a couple of times post-game down at Clemson. I've interviewed him that was my, 4th Clemson Media Day open house. And he's never been anything but kind and gracious to me or anyone that was around me at the time. So the interview period, it's an open interview period. The open interview period, press conference, ends. And the SID goes so far as to go and turn out the lights in the building. And by the way, it's the right decision, all right? Because with a guy like Dabo, who we all know is right in the middle of some big-time stuff, is we've got, it's July. We've got 40-some-odd days, 47 days, 48 days until Clemson opens against Georgia, right into the fire to start the season. So it's kind of a massive time right now for Dabo before camp starts up to make sure all of the metaphorical ducks are in the proverbial row. So they go and they turn off the lights in the press conference room so that, you can't, if you're filming on camera, you can't really do that anymore. It's too dark. It's kind of like when you turn the lights off in the bar at the end of the night. And was it Supersonic? Was that the name of the band? Closing Time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Was it Supersonic? Semisonic. I knew it was one of the Sonics. Supersonic, Semisonic, Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know. Anyway, they turn the lights down, and I'm sitting there. Cole Bryson is sitting there. Friend of the show, friend of the station, Susan is sitting there. There's like 4 or 5 of us. There's a lot more. There's like 10, 11 of us. But we're all kind of sitting there. And the last 4 or 5 minutes of the press conference was kind of, it was a little less serious. First, probably 30 minutes, 32 minutes were football questions, right? How do you gear Garrett up for Georgia? How is X player or Y player doing? How have they made the adaptation to the spring? And how do you expect spring to translate to fall? Yada, yada, yada. Genuine football questions. But then, as we got to the end of the show, it kind of got to be a little bit more fun. Last year you told the story about going on safari and how that inspired you. did you do any vacation this year? And Dabo was talking about going on vacation up to New England with his wife, and they're celebrating 30 years this past Tuesday. And, he's got a goal, and I respect this one, me too. He's got a goal to see and visit all 50 states of the union. And I think he said he hit 4 during this trip a couple of weeks ago that he has not been to yet. And he's down to 8 left. The Dakotas, California, whatever. It's a nice little story. And then Cole Bryson asked the story of the day. The 1992 Alabama Crimson Tide football team is in the College Football 25 video game. Dabo Swinney, a wide receiver on that team. And in that game, Dabo Swinney has a 92 overall speed. My dude can go. So we asked about that, and he said, these kids slept on me, but I think they got my running down the hill speed, not my actual. Like, it was funny. It was a good little moment. It was cool. All right, I enjoyed it. As anybody who's listened to this show knows, I don't think sports have to be all serious all the time. I think it's okay to just lean back and have some fun. Anyway, all that ends, and they turn out the lights, and the camera starts shutting down, and somebody up front asked Dabo another question. And it wasn't meant to be like an on the record, we're going to report this, big article coming up on the website later kind of question. It was really just meant to be a question for a guy that is covered by a guy that covers that guy. Just hey, you know me, I cover this team. We see each other at the end of every game. Here's my thought. Here's my question mark. How we doing? And Dabo sat there and he answered, and they laughed and they joked. And then somebody walked up. I do not know who it was, and I wouldn't out him if I did, because this isn't what you do in a professional setting like this. But somebody walked up to Dabo and was like, hey, and I don't know if it was like a cousin or whatever, but so-and-so in my family is a big fan, big Clemson fan. It's their birthday. Could you give a birthday shout out real quick? Dabo was like, absolutely. Absolutely. Dude turned his phone around. Dabo said, hey, so-and-so, just wanted to wish you the best of birthdays. Happy birthday. Go Tigers. Right? And he sat there and he just kind of hung out. He just kind of hung out for a handful of minutes. And in that hanging out, it was like, that's the guy. That's the guy, right? We can sit here and we can beat up on the transfer portal stuff and the NIL stuff. There was a quote he had about the transfer portal that I'll give to you later. Somebody said, Dabo, how big do you think the portal is? And he made 2 points in his own defense. Defense number one was, look, we recruit guys that we want here, and we recruit guys who want to be here. Part of the reason that a lot of teams have the ability to work the portal is because players leave in the portal and they open up roster spots. So we don't have guys that leave. We don't have guys that want to leave. We recruit guys who want to be here, so we can't really use the portal because there's nowhere to put portal guys who come in. I think it's fair. And then he went on to talk about NIL. He said, look, it's not that we don't have NIL. It's just that we don't really use it as a huge selling point, right? And he said, if a guy sets NIL as his priority, he's probably not going to fit in here anyway. He said, if it is a priority for a guy, we got as good as chance as anybody to get that guy. If it is the priority for a guy, we probably don't have a chance with that guy, and we understand that going in, and so we're good with it. And I thought that was all good. I like I said, I understand that these guys, much like politicians, they've got their crafted answers. They've got their crafted responses. These are questions. I promise you, in the 42 minutes he spoke to the media yesterday, Dabo Swinney did not get asked a question that he has not been asked a dozen or more times so far, right? No, none of us in that room, with the exception of maybe Cole Bryson, who asked him about his speed on the EA Sports College Football 25 video game. outside of Cole, I doubt that anybody hit Dabs with a question yesterday that Dabo doesn't have a memorized scripted answer to. Here's what I'll tell you. The guy comes across as affable, as enjoyable, as pleasant. And that is why I have said a million times, who gives a damn what anybody outside of Clemson, South Carolina thinks? Who gives a hell, right? Who cares? All that matters is what you guys think about the guy. And all that matters is how y'all feel about him. That's it. Literally nothing else matters, right? Nothing else matters. And I think yesterday we got a little bit of I got a little bit of a refresher on that. And it was pleasant. It was nice. I thought it was very cool to kind of see that side of him at a point in time where, and he made the point, he said, look, he said, this is a terrible time for Clemson. We lost 4 games last year. This is a terrible time for Clemson. How awful, right? And he kind of made jokes about it. At a point in time where it would be more than understandable if Dabo Swinney was like, yo, bleep you, bleep you, bleep you, you're cool, I'm out, right? At a point in time where if Dabo said, bleep this, I'm out. I'm not, you guys are beating me up. You guys are making me look bad. You're doing your best to make my relationship with this school bad. And for the record, it would be understandable. Instead, what my guy did was sit there, answer every question, make some good points, kind of laugh through it, kind of have some fun, and basically say, you know what? We know there's haters, but we don't care. But we don't care. We're not worried about it. We're not worried about it. We're us and we're fine. I thought it was good. I'll talk more about the interaction we had with Dabo Swinney yesterday later on in the show. Coming up on the show today, we have got a lot of things that we need to get into in the program. We will talk this AM about some NFL ball later in the show, and we will get to some NFL ball later in the show. Because Matt Berry of ESPN, Matt Berry has put out his updated fantasy football positional rankings. Now, again, those aren't everything, right? Those aren't everything. They're not the end of the world. They're not everything. But I think you can kind of get a gauge, right? If you've got a team that's got 2 or 3 wide receivers inside the top 20 fantasy wide receivers, you can expect that team's air raid offense is going to be pretty good. So we're going to break those down and take a look and see if there's any patterns and any trends that we can find there. We're going to talk some golf. I got some sound from Tiger Woods, who is over in England right now, getting set up for the Open. He had some things to say yesterday, as did Rory McIlroy. We'll talk about that. I got some Carolina Panthers stuff we need to get into. And I'm going to tell you right now, we have got a lot of college football to talk about on the show today. We've got an update on, or I guess not really, from a major college football reporter, a trustworthy college football reporter, regarding the Big 12 conversation about Florida State and Clemson. I'll give you that. Kirby Smart is not coaching. He's relying on his NIL collective to do it. That's fun. We'll talk about that. Shane Beamer said to some controversy, I'm going to do what's right by my team. And I appreciate that comment. I'll tell you that. It's busy. A lot of college football today. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate.
The Fan Upstate is the sports voice of you, the Upstate Fan. Call 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The Fan Upstate.
Can't wait to hear what's next on Wire to Wire with Cole and Diesel.
All right, good morning, Michael, and everybody else watching. Do me a favor. I got to go fix the lighting in here because I look like a ghost right now. So I'm going to step away for just a minute, and I will be right back. I'm not going anywhere, not leaving the room. Just got to move some lights around. Y'all stay right there. Gar, would you look at that? I'm lit-ish now. I got a shadow and everything. All right, thanks for hanging in there. Sorry, I'm a goofball. I don't know what you want. It's just me.
Revenue and results. Visit AmericanEagle.com. PF Chang's at AmericanEagle.com. Another example of the best businesses in the world. Turning to the best in the business for websites. Go to AmericanEagle.com or call 877-WEB-NOW1. That's 877-WEB-NOW1.
Sponsored by ChumbaCasino.com. Welcome to the ultimate playground for online social casino enthusiasts. Get ready to live the Chumba life and play over 100 online casino-style games for free at ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Rise and shine, sports fans. Grab your coffee and get a jolt of sports on the Rob Brown Show with Lonzo. Now, weekday morning 6 to 10 on the Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Great to be with you. Great to have you here on the show this morning. I am going to save a lot of the Clemson stuff for later in the show. All right. A lot of what happened yesterday at Clemson Media Open House Day, I'm going to save for later in the show. And I'm going to save it for later in the show because there's a lot of stuff I think that it's justifiable to react to. Debo had some very interesting comments yesterday that a handful I really appreciated. A handful I was kind of like, all right. And then a couple that I'm like, I'd push back on that, right? Now, there was a Q&A period towards the end of the game, or towards the end of the press conference, that members of the media were able to jump in. I had a couple of questions. Cole Bryson had a couple of questions. The questions were by and large and primarily, generic questions, pretty standard operating procedure questions, which again, it makes sense. It makes sense. There's only so many things to get into, right? There's only so much you can talk about. I did appreciate, like I said, Cole Bryson's question regarding the college football 25 speed rankings of one Dabo Swinney, which was not just a fun question, but again, you kind of got to see that personality shine through. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the radio broadcast, and I look forward to it. But there's some other stuff I want to get to on the show. Let's jump straight in. We're going to talk a lot of Clemson today. We're going to talk a little bit of South Carolina today as well. This one, more for fun than for anything else. But I did want to get to it. Because I do this every year. I'm not going to get to do it this year, unfortunately, before the season starts, because as my loving, adoring, and spectacular fiance found out yesterday, next-gen consoles are expensive. She is an incredible woman. She went yesterday she wanted to go buy me a new one. She was going to go surprise me with one because she heard me talking about it on the radio because she's awesome. So she was going to go find me one. She asked one of her male coworkers about it. Like, all right, what do I need to get him? And he texted me. She texted me. What Xbox, PlayStation guy, whatever. Went through the whole thing. She said I was going to get you one. I was going to get you one as like a pre-wedding, thanks for being an awesome fiance present. But then I saw how expensive they are, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I didn't just buy it myself. I am a dude that just buys it himself. Anyway, I usually do this every year when we have the opportunity. This is more a Madden thing than it's been a college football thing, obviously, as we haven't had a college game in a while to lean on. But A writer for Gamecock Digest by the name of Fisher Brewer, which, good God, what a name. Fisher Brewer. That guy has a name that is two of my favorite things. Two things that I either am or aspire to be. Fisher Brewer fired up his new NCAA College Football 25 game, and he simulated the entire season. He said, to celebrate the release of the new college football game, we decided to take the Gamecocks into dynasty mode without touching anything or playing any games, simulating all the way through to bowl season to see where it predicts the Gamecocks will stand at the end of the 2024 season. Now, before we do that, yesterday I said on the show, to me, a bowl game is mandatory this year. You have at home against Old Dominion. You've got week number 2 against Kentucky, LSU, Akron, then a bye week. Week 6, Ole Miss, then number 10, Alabama. Then you got Oklahoma. Then you got number 10, Texas A&M. Then Vandy, Mizzou, Wofford, and Clemson to end the season. Fisher Brewer, one of the greatest names I've ever read, period, in any line of business, simulated the season. And here's what it kicked back at him. It kicked back at him a 7-5 record, including going 2-2 against ranked teams, securing a top 10 and top 15 win, winning 2 of the 4, if you consider there to be 4, rivalry games, including Kentucky. Most importantly, secured a crucial win that sent them to a bowl game late. The final record is predicted by College Football 2025 was a 7-5 record for the Gamecocks. The schedule laid out this way. Week 1, a 35-21 win against the Old Dominion Monarchs. Week 2, a 10-point 41-31 loss in a rivalry game against Kentucky. In week 3, a 38-31 loss against LSU. You're 1-2. In week 4, a 26-10 win over the Akron Zips, 2-2. Then the bye week. Then week 6, Ole Miss, a beatdown, 42-26. The L to Ole Miss drops you to 2-3. Week 7, maybe the biggest shocker on this. A win over number 10 Alabama, and not just a win, but a good win. 38-20 brings you back to a 3-3 record, but you follow it up. An emotional win, an exhausting win, a fatiguing win. I don't know if fatiguing is a word, but I'm rolling with it. A fatiguing win over Alabama followed up by a heartbreaker, 31-30, an L to Oklahoma. That brings you into the bye week with a record of 3 wins and 4 losses. Out of the bye week, loss number 5 against Texas A&M, 41-24, but then 3 consecutive wins. Vandy, 31-24, Missouri, 41-38, and a 35-14 win over Wofford. That sets you up with a showdown against the number 11 Clemson Tigers. And according to College Football 2025, the season wrapped up with a 31-28 win over Clemson. The Gamecocks, 2-2 versus ranked teams, securing a top 10 and a top 15 win while losing to a top 5 and a top 10 team. They won 2 of the 4 rivalry games, including a newer rivalry with Kentucky. Most importantly, secured a crucial road win against in-state rival Clemson to win the Palmetto Bowl. Statistically, for the South Carolina Gamecocks, in the season, Lenora Sellers, 3,285 passing yards, 29 tutties to 10 picks, a QB completion percentage of 71%, and a 182 QBR. Interestingly enough, and I don't think this will be the case in real life, Lenora Sellers was the only player to attempt to pass in the game. on the ground. Rocket Raheem Sanders, 148 carries for 1,057 yards, an average of 7.1 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns on the ground overall. Lenora Sellers, 109 carries for 393 yards and 6 touches. Running back Oscar Attaway III, 55 carries for $145 and 3 tutties. And Amari Huggins Bruce, 21 carries, 79 yards and 1 touchdown. Through the air, Nick Harbor led the team with 845 receiving yards with 10 touchdowns on 49 snags. Amari Huggins Bruce, 45 receptions for 688 yards and 7 touchdowns. Wide receiver Delavon Campbell, 35 snags, 659 yards and 7 touchdowns. The first tight end on the group, Josh Simon, 44 snags, 528 yards, and a pair of tutties. And Jared Brown chipped in 26 grabs for 332 yards and a touchdown as well. 2 NFL draft prospects sent to the league after the simulation, running back Raheem Rocket Sanders, who was drafted in the 6th round, and defensive lineman Tonka Hemingway, drafted in the 6th round as well. So if you put any stock in that, I'm going to tell you right now, 7-5 is a season. 7-5 is a season. 7-5 in the direction that you want to go is a season for the boys. I'd be very happy with that. I think a bowl win is mandatory. We did the breakdown yesterday. Old Dominion must be a win. Akron must be a win. Wofford must be a win. Vanderbilt must be a win. I am happy to say, under Shane Beamer, I have expectations of must-win games. I have expectations of games that this team must get W's. They're not big, all right? Old Dominion is a must-win. Akron is a must-win. Wofford is a must-win. Those 3 paycheck games must be must-wins. And I would say in the conference, Vanderbilt is a must-win. You cannot allow yourself to slip down to the level of Vanderbilt. So if I say that those are 4 must-win games, you've got to get me 2 between Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Clemson. I need 2 out of 8, and that'll be a successful season, in my opinion. I don't think 7-5 is unrealistic. If Lenora Sellers is a dude, if Lenora Sellers is the guy that Shane Beamer is trying to sell us on him being, if he really is him, then I do not have a problem. I do not have an issue saying that he's got to be the guy. I don't have an issue saying he's got to be that guy. If he can be that guy, then I think there is a very good chance. This team could be a 7-win team. For the record, and let me be clear about this, I don't even think it's a stretch, man. I don't even think it's all that much of a stretch for this team to be 7 wins. In fact, I almost kind of expect it. 6 wins, minimum expectation. If Shane Beamer's not bowl eligible at the end of this season, if friend of the show, Shane Beamer, is not bowl eligible at the end of this year, then I will say it's probably time for a very awkward conversation at the end of this year. Is it time to consider moving on? I don't want it to be. I don't think it has to be. But if you're not bowl eligible, all those things we've been saying about Dabo Swinney, I think I got to start saying about Shane, even if it is a tough year. You've got 4 wins already. Then I need 2 out of 8. If you can't get 2 wins out of 8 opportunities, I think we got to have a very awkward conversation. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
one-stop shop for sports betting insight. It's MGM Tonight on the BetQL Network. Tonight at 7, only on The Fan.
Upstate. I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive. Clemson football head coach Dabo Swinney said at media days on Tuesday that he has concerns about unintended consequences that he could see as college football increases its emphasis on the college football playoff. This year, it expands from 4 teams to 12. Swinney said, quote, "You'll probably see some guys, if you're 4-4 and out of the playoffs, who will probably head off to Arizona to train for the NFL." San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has officially requested a trade. He's been in negotiations for a contract extension throughout the offseason, but hasn't been able to come to an agreement. Broncos and guard Quinn Meinerz have agreed to a 4-year, $80 million contract extension. Trade speculation swirling around Raiders receiver Devontae Adams, but his agents went on record Tuesday saying that Adams is not on the trading block. Bundle auto.
Thing to do. So compare rates with Progressive's Home Quote Explorer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Okay, if you're sleeping on the hot summer styles and great prices at Kohl's, you're missing out. I just shopped there and scored stylish shirts for my husband, along with some cute crochet dresses for myself. Plus, I saved 30% with my Kohl's card. But even if you don't have one, you can still save an extra 20% on some other great finds and earn Kohl's cash. So what are you waiting for? Take your summer style from hot to sizzling and get to Kohl's. Select styles, 20% off GPO, valid through July 21st. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them.
With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can avoid all the noise.
No more unexpected surcharges, hidden fees, or complex rate structures.
It's just easy, cost-effective, and dependable shipping. Tune your business's frequency to success and turn shipping to your advantage. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
Sound off on the text line.
71307.
Keyword fan.
You're listening to the Rob Brown Show. Only on the Fan.
All states.
Here we go, the Rob Brown Show. We're wrapping up hour number 1 on the Fan Upstate. The Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone is open for you. 844-326-3663. You can shoot us a text on the text line at 71307, which I need to open up right now, and I shall because I didn't yet because I'm a bad host. Running solo today. Get off me, all right? And you're welcome. Text line open 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, FAN, F-A-N, and we'll read it on the air. Texter said, Beamer is a great coach. South Carolina is a bottom feeder program. If South Carolina moved on from him, he'll go be successful somewhere else. It's best they hold on to him. That is a wonderful backhanded compliment of a texter. That's really well done. You managed to get the dig while giving an overall compliment. That's so sweet of you. I like it. South Carolina, to me, you know what they feel like to me? What they feel like to me is a program that has all of the tools and all of the resources necessary to eventually be successful. I do think, and the argument I will make, have made, will continue to make is this. If Clemson can do it, South Carolina can do it. I am relatively comfortable saying for a school that has all of the benefits in terms of geography, in terms of location, in terms of recruiting area, in terms of all of what Clemson has, South Carolina has the same thing. And on top of that, they've got the SEC resources to lean on. South Carolina has one big negative going for it. Schedule sucks every year, dude. The schedule is tough every year. That's rough. Nobody's going to argue with that. And I think it's fair to say, to assume even that because of that, it might be tough to convince people to come play there.
I just sprinted to the bathroom. I'm sweating.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to. No, stop it, Pat. I'm trying to move stuff around on my soundboard and also host and also produce. I'll figure this whole being a professional thing out one day. Today's probably not that day, but I'm working on it. Anyway, I think it is fair to say that the biggest problem that the Gamecocks have overall is the conference they play in. It is also their biggest resource, right? It is also in my opinion, it's also their biggest resource. You're going to get the money that comes in. You're going to get the benefit of having the stadiums and the schools that players get to visit. There's a lot going on that's good there. But you also get the money. You get the money, which is the whole reason Clemson's got 2 lawsuits going right now. So is it a bottom feeder school? I don't think it is. I think it's a school that spent a very long time toiling in mediocrity. And the longer that you toil in mediocrity, the harder it is to climb out of it. The longer you spend in the mud, the longer it takes to get clean. But I look at what the excitement was around this program. And I wasn't here covering it, but I was down in Florida covering the Gators when Steve Spurrier was there at South Carolina, in Columbia. And I remember the excitement, the energy, the gas, the juice that was around that program, even talking about it from a distance and talking about it for no other reason than a former coach of a school that I was then covering was the coach there at the time. The resources are there. The money is there. The attractiveness is there. And now a coach that, if nothing else, you've got a coach who builds a great culture. You've got a coach who's got guys excited, who's got fans excited, despite the fact that you are coming off of a year where you didn't meet expectations. Coming off of a year where I think a bowl game was very fair. You didn't get there. And because you didn't get there, it was frustrating. And yet, here we are in a spot where people are still excited. People are still jacked up. People are still dialing in. Trey on the stream just said something interesting. He said, once South Carolina renovates the area around the stadium, it will be a whole lot more attractive area for recruits. Absolutely. Because I'll say this too. One of the issues, if there is one of the issues around South Carolina is an issue, and there's a lot of schools that have this. I think Florida struggles with this a little bit as well, is that, I've been to Columbia a handful of times. I've been over there for, 2-star awards or 3-star award ceremonies so far. I have been there for South Carolina baseball and basketball games, South Carolina football games. I have been there on a vacation. The fiance's a Gamecock. She gave me the tour of the city, et cetera, et cetera. I've been there a few times. There are two things there. There's a college and there's the political world. It's very similar to Tallahassee. I think that might actually be a more apt comparison. With Florida, for instance, Gainesville, Florida. If you ever go down to Gainesville, you're going for a college sporting event because there's not a damn thing else in that city. It's not even a city. Gainesville is a campus that there's a bunch of stuff outside of it. Tallahassee has got, obviously, the campus of Florida State University, but it's also got the state capitol. So there's really two worlds in Tallahassee. There's the college and all the things based around the college, and then there's the political side. That's kind of Columbia. That's one of the negatives of Columbia. I say that respectfully. One of the negatives of Columbia is that Columbia is just Columbia. It's just Columbia. There's the college, there's the capital, and there's not much else. So the more that you do to make that city look like a great college town, the more enticing it becomes to, 16 and 17, 18-year-old kids trying to make a decision about where they want to, do their colleging. And I think that's a fair point from Trey. But as I've said before, and I'll say again, I got no problem putting shortcomings on the radio when I see one. I don't think South Carolina is, according to this texter, a, quote, bottom feeder program, end quote. I think right now, especially in the portal, it's going to be harder to climb out of that role, right? Because if you're a kid that comes to South Carolina and you go 6-6 and you're playing in the dentist bowl or whatever, and then in Alabama or a Georgia comes to call it and say, hey, you know what? We got room for you up here in Athens, down here in Tuscaloosa. Might be hard to keep some kids to stay. But you know how you do that? You give them a great place that they want to be. You give them a place they want to hang out. You give them a place that's cool to be. You give them a culture that they want to be a part of. And that is what Shane is doing right now. Coaching aside, that is what Shane is doing. And if that is what Shane is doing, that's a step in the right direction. I think it takes time. What I am going to say is I'm not going to put up with 4 or 5 or 6 years of being a 4 and 5 and 6 win team, missing every other bowl game, getting walloped by teams like Kentucky and Missouri that you should be competing with. I'm not going to put up with that because, again, the longer you stay in the mud, the harder it is to get the mud off of you. It's got to be a step up. But when I look at this simulation we just talked about, when I look at how this whole thing played out right now, I'm going to be honest. 7 and 5 feels realistic. 4 guaranteed wins. And then I need 2 of the remaining 8 to be bowl eligible. And you're telling me they can't get 3 out of those 8? I know they're against ranked teams. Clemson, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. It's not an easy schedule. But I can't find one more win in there somewhere. I'm going to push back on that. And you get there, you get to 7, you get to 8, right? Maybe it's a year or 2 down the road, but you get from 6, you get to where 6 is a failure. And then 7 becomes the realistic expectation. And then you go from where 7's a failure and 8. And it may take some time. But I don't think Shane Beamer had any disillusion that this was going to be a project that takes some time. I don't think he thought he was going to step in and start winning SEC titles out of the gate. Texas said that's why Clemson is more attractive. Beautiful campus, downtown area, Lake Hartwell, etc. It's the perfect college town. Clemson's kind of the same way. Again, I was there yesterday. There's a campus. There's some stuff built around the campus, and that's it. Now, you do have Lake Hartwell, which is a big selling point. But I would also argue Columbia, and maybe this is a selling point to the Utes, and maybe it's not. But Columbia is 2 hours from the upstate, from Greenville, from Spartanburg. It's 2 hours from Charleston. It's 2 hours from Myrtle Beach. It's 2 hours from everything. It's 3 hours to Charlotte. It's 4 hours from Atlanta. It maybe doesn't have Lake Hartwell, but it's easy access to a lot of other places where a lot of cool stuff is happening. Is that worth anything? I don't know. I'm not 17 anymore. I can't answer that. I would say both of them are there, but that is kind of my point. If Clemson, which was a program, I think Clemson fans would agree with this. If Clemson, which was a program that was expected to be a middle-of-the-pack program for years and years and years, was able to find the right guy at the right time and get out of that hole and become a powerhouse, and it still is. That's not over. But if they were able to get out of that hole and become a powerhouse, why the hell can't South Carolina? What does Clemson have aside from Lake Hartwell that South Carolina doesn't? And on top of that, for the next foreseeable years, South Carolina is going to have more money to pour into it as well. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying I think it can. And I think at some point, if you're South Carolina, whether it's Shane Beamer or the next guy or the next guy, you've got to look at that guy and go, it's time. It's time to get up out of this rut. And I think this year, after last year, feels like if we don't take a step forward, we are setting ourselves up 3 steps back kind of year. It happened again. The American League has won the 10th out of the last 11 All-Star games with a 5-3 come-from-behind victory over the National League last night. Rookie Paul Skeens of the Pirates got the start, forcing Yankee star Aaron Judge to ground out for a scoreless first inning after a 3-run homer from Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani. Game MVP Jarren Duran took Hunter Green deep to give the AL the lead for good. Duran is the first Red Sox player since J.D. Drew in 2008 to win All-Star MVP. San Francisco wide receiver Brandon Ayuk requested a trade from the team yesterday. Ayuk's extension talks with the team have stalled, but Adam Schefter of ESPN reports while teams have inquired about Ayuk, the team is refusing conversations. Ayuk has 1 year remaining on his rookie contract. And the SEC coordinator officials, John McDade, said yesterday the SEC will not penalize SEC schools for using the horns down gesture against Texas. McDade said the act is not offensive to the senses. Oh, that would have been a bar. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Lake Murray. I have not been to Lake Murray yet. Tell me about Lake Murray. I'm going to have to go Wikipedia Lake Murray. I don't know anything about it.
feed to keep you informed. Break the game down. Powered by your local Ingles Market. Low prices, love the savings. The ACC kickoff. The best cover is on the Fan Upstate.
Up to the minute, upstate traffic. The good construction folks have been working all night southbound 85 around 276 Malden Road. The Cordell construction cam shows they're packing things up and traffic is slowly getting back to normal. Use caution through that area. Elsewhere throughout the upstate, all roads are clear and running at posted speeds. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on the Fan Upstate.
Do you know the secret to losing up to 1 pound of fat every day? Hi, this is Dr. Elliot Hirschhorn with New Life Weight Loss, and we know the secret. Our unique doctor-supervised weight loss program makes it easy to lose weight, get healthy, and get your energy back naturally, safely, and effectively. If you'd like to lose unhealthy fat without counting points or calories, no exercising, no prepackaged meals, no HCG, no drugs, and no surgery, go to mynewlifeweightloss.com now.
Good fishing. Been tubing on it once. Last I checked, Spinner Steve Spurrier has a house on Lake Murray. Let's see. The Jewel of South Carolina. Does it have a Wikipedia page? Can I go down that rabbit hole? Yes, it does. A reservoir in the U.S. state of South Carolina, approximately 50,000 acres, impounded in the late 20s to provide hydroelectric power to the state of South Carolina, fed by the Saluda River, which flows from upstate South Carolina near the NC state line. The Saluda Dam, officially from the Jura Shoals Dam, was an engineering feat at the time of its construction. The dam using the native red clay soil and bedrock. Have I? I don't think I've been there yet. No, I have not been there yet. Lake has become a recreational attraction, with fishing and boating being popular activities. Also, Dreher Island State Recreation Area, located in the western of the part of the lake, provides multiple activities, all focused on the lake. Okay, cool. Well, I will. I love a lake, man. I love a lake.
I'm winning. I finally cleaned my house, so I'm bringing out my new tropical room spray.
Keep winning and create an affordable price just for you by bundling your home and auto with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It's like your own personal paradise.
Ooh, hey, grab me a coconut water.
Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Prices are based on rating plans and vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
As school messes return, rest easy. Clorox has got your back to school.
Oh, no.
I'm back. That messy science experiment. And I brought baking soda, cornstarch.
And you're due tomorrow, right? Well, at least I stocked up on Clorox disinfecting wipes, because you're not messing up my kitchen counters like last time.
Ooh, smart. Got any food coloring?
And off to the store we go.
Stock up on Clorox disinfecting wipes that clean 3 times better. And when paper towels and kitchen grease and soaps come.
No, shockingly, Stephen, they are not paying me twice the money to do boat jobs, but you know. What I will tell you is that this is why you keep old Uncle Rob Brown around, because if something goes squirrely, if something goes sideways, not just can I one-man band it, but I can one-man band it well.
It bothers you more than it bothers me.
Well, the logical side of my brain is like, there's got to be a distinction, otherwise there's no point in having both words.
So I could say Kilimanjaro is just a hill.
Yeah, it's a big-ass hill.
It's a big hill.
Yeah, and when I roll outside tomorrow and I take the dog for a walk, because our house sits on a hill, I'm going to tell everybody I know, I go climbing mountains every day.
I live kind of on a hill. I'm going to say it's a mountain.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Don't hit snooze, hit play. The Rob Brown Show, now morning 6 to 10 on The Fan.
The Fan Upstate.
Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Turn on, leave on.
Julian Council joins us here. Just before the draft, David Tepper told Sheena Quick that he would stay farther away this year than he has in years past. But he didn't. He embarrassed himself again. Since then, though, it's been quiet. Is he staying quiet? How long does this radio silence last in your mind?
Well, it's kind of one of those things where how many days since the last accident, and that's what we're doing with the counter here. So I guess it's been about a month since the last incident involving David Tepper where he makes himself look foolish. I'm not totally bought into the idea that David Tepper is going to take a step back completely. Things have been quiet for now.
That's the key word, right, Julian? For now, how long does David Tepper actually stay quiet? Is the question.
Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Turn on, leave on. Afternoons 3 to 7 on the Fan Upstate. The Fan.
Upstate.
WYRD Greenville.
WORD Spartanburg.
WFBC HD3 Greenville.
W249DL Greenville.
W246CB Spartanburg.
Upstate.
And Odyssey Sports Station.
Man, check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represent Spring and Brady. Yeah.
Steven, you know what? I'll ask. Why not? What's it hurt to ask, right? Hey, boss, I did all this work. How's the new Xbox Series X sound? Hour number 2 gets its start right now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. How do Upstate South Carolina? Hello, America. What up, world? We have got some stuff to talk about, some stuff to discuss. But before I get to any of those things, I want to run this by you. Yeah, remember yesterday we were having a discussion about the young lady who sang the national anthem before the home run derby, and it went real not good. Remember that? We played you a little bit of the clip yesterday on the show.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, so we played a little bit of that clip for you yesterday. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. That young lady is named Ingrid Andress. She is a country music artist who has 4 Grammy nominations, and we absolutely blew her up, right? And for the record, respectfully, deservedly so. That's not a spot you can do that, right? The Home Run Derby is the biggest baseball event that's not the World Series, right? I think the Home Run Derby is I don't know if it'll show up in the ratings, but I think it's more important to baseball than the All-Star game, right? On Monday night, because it's only Wednesday. On Monday night, I sat down to watch the Derby, and I was like, hey, fiance, would you like to watch this? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like fun. I'll do it. And then last night, the All-Star game comes on at 8 o'clock, and I said, hey, fiance, would you like to watch the All-Star game with me? And she went, nah, I'm good. So she went back and she watched some Law & Order SVU. Bum, bum. I don't have that sounder. Lonzo's got that sounder. Anyway, she went back and watched Law & Order SVU. She was in for the Derby, not the All-Star game itself. So we beat up on this young lady. And again, I think deservedly so. Yesterday, she put up on social media. A post that said, let me see if here's the exact quote. She put up a post that said, I'm not going to bull y'all. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into a facility today to get the help I need. That was not me last night. I apologize to Major League Baseball, all the fans in this country I love so much for that rendition. I'll let y'all know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. XO Ingrid. All right, so I wanted to address it because I made a run at this lady yesterday. I was a full-on hater.
Who could be the biggest hater and say the dumbest stuff?
Me, Dan Orlovsky. But, it really wasn't. All right? You knew what you're doing. You know what you got going on. You know the direction that you are going in. You know that is going to be the biggest performance of your life. I don't care if you got 4 Grammy nominations. More people were watching that than anything you've ever done before. That sucks. That sucks. Getting blasted in that moment, not great. All right? I will say this. If this is true, I genuinely wish her the best. If this is true, I wish her the best. If this is true, I hope she gets the help that she needs. I hope that the help works out. I hope that she's able to fight through it. If she can, if all of this is legitimate and honest, and this is sincerely an issue that she is struggling with, I hope she gets the help. And if there are any of you out there that are struggling with alcoholism, that are struggling with abuse, that are struggling with whatever, I hope you get the help that you need. I really do. I hope you get the help that you need. I hope that you get the help that will help you be a better person and live a better life. All right? I am pulling for you, just like I'm pulling for this young lady. However, you can't, right? You can't. You gotta do better. So I hope she gets the help that she needs. I hope that she gets through this. I hope that she is better off coming out than she was going in. Because I told you, I listened to some of her stuff. She's got some pretty good stuff. It's not necessarily my style, not necessarily my genre. It's not really for me, right? Like, she's not making that for me. But I hope she gets the help she needs. I hope she gets through it. And if there are any of y'all that are struggling with whatever issue you might be struggling with, if there are any of y'all that are fighting through an addiction problem or an abuse problem or whatever else you've got going on, I'm pulling for you as well. Go get the help, all right? Take the time, do what you got to do. Go get the help to make yourself better. It is the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports. Obviously, we are way deep into the segment, so I will sprint through these very quickly. Let us begin with item number 1. This is not necessarily any sort of official report, but it did bring some more context to the conversation yesterday. Brett McMurphy is a writer for Action Network. He has also written for ESPN and a handful of other outlets over the years. Brett McMurphy put out a tweet yesterday we're going to talk about coming up here in a few minutes. He said, quote, "The Big Ten and SEC are unlikely to add Florida State if it leaves the ACC and the ACC survives. The Big Ten and the SEC don't want FSU because adding FSU doesn't make financial sense and there's no desire to expand. And, quote, they've been a disruptive partner," end quote. He cites hashtag sources, hashtag trust me, bro, as his reason for that. Now, I don't have a problem believing that Brett McMurphy was told that. I don't have a problem believing that Brett McMurphy was being legitimate and honest in what he's heard. But I thought about this a lot more last night, and I'm going to address it because I don't I don't believe it. Like, I don't believe it. I think that I think it's a cover your backside kind of thing for the Big Ten, for the SEC, But I will talk about that more coming up in the next segment of the show, as a matter of fact. Item number 2 on the water cooler cheat sheet. 10 out of 11. 10 out of 11. That's how many All-Star games won by the American League. They added to that tally last night. They have won 10 out of the 11 All-Star games after a 5-3 victory over the National League. Paul Skeens got the call to go last night for the National League. He threw his 1 inning, 1 walk, no strikeouts. Did walk Juan Soto. Juan Soto was working the count to make sure that Aaron Judge came up. He did get to face Aaron Judge, did Paul Skeens. And on the very first pitch, forced a ground out from the Yankee superstar to earn the W. Hunter Green gave up a 2-run shot to the Red Sox superstar. Johan Duran became the first Red Sox player to win the MVP since a long time ago, all the way back in 2008. Jarren Duran took Hunter Green deep to become the first Red Sox player since 2008. That was J.D. Drew to win the Major League Baseball All-Star Game MVP award last night. Juan Soto had a hit. Santander had a hit. Duran had a hit. The dinger. Fry had a hit. And Marcus Semien had a hit for the American League. Over on the National League side, Max Fried did go out last night. The Atlanta Brave representing off the bump. Reynaldo Lopez did as well. Lopez faced just 1 batter, earned his 1K before being relieved by Ranger Suarez of the Phillies. 10 out of 11 All-Star games going the way of the American League. Does it matter? No. Is it fun to talk about anyway? Not if you're a National League fan. Item number 3 on the water cooler cheat sheet. An official for the U.S. Department of Education has said that revenue sharing activities of college sports, colleges, is subject to Title IX coverage. Catherine Lamont, L-H-A-M-O-N, I'm saying it, Lamont. Catherine Lamont is the Assistant Secretary for the Department's Office for Civil Rights. She released a written statement yesterday that said, quote, schools must provide equal athletic opportunities based on sex, including with respect to benefits, opportunities, publicity, and recruitment, and must not discriminate in provision of financial aid. In the new NIL environment, these same principles apply. I found this interesting, and I don't think this is going to be easily settled. I would not be shocked to see a lawsuit challenge this at some, scratch that. I would not be shocked to see a lawsuit challenge this, though I am very interested in it. I am very interested in it because is there a school that wants to be that school, that wants to push back, that wants to be involved in a lawsuit that would likely see the defendant be the federal government? I don't know is the answer. I know that they're going to make the argument that, revenue distribution is only being generated. Revenue is only being generated by certain sports, right? And we've already had the conversation that some schools are going to make the argument over time that some athletes, and this is a conversation that is going to really circle around the lawsuit to determine whether or not athletes are employees or should be labeled employees of the school. But the conversation has been so far. The conversation has been that some students should be considered not employees, but hobbyists. Some students are playing the game not for profit, not for benefit, not for long, just because it's fun to do and the school is giving them a scholarship. And others are making money in a way that you could consider them profit generating. And if that's the case, those are the ones that should be considered employees. I think you're going to end up with the same thing happening here. They are going to make an argument that, all right, we are giving $22 million of revenue back to the players. It should go to the players who generate revenue, right? It should go to the players that generate revenue. Because while I'm sure there are a handful of school presidents and athletic directors who are happy to cut checks for the women's basketball team or for the, women's swimming and diving team, whatever, there's going to be a lot more that would rather take that 20 mil and put it towards athletes in the sports that make them money, primarily basketball and football, maybe a little baseball. So I would not be shocked, despite the fact that a Fed has now come out and said Title IX applies to this revenue split. I would not be shocked to see down the line a school challenge that. See if that holds up in front of a court under the argument that revenue is generated by the athletes to be returned to the athletes. It should go to the athletes that generate the revenue, not the ones that don't. And that obviously would not just take down those athletes that are protected by Title IX considerations. It'd take down everybody else too, right? Like the men's cross country team is not going to be catching a whole lot of extra dollars via revenue split if the school doesn't have to. So it's interesting. All right, let's take a break. Back after this, the Rob Brown Show rolls on. It's the Fan Upstate. There is, y'all. There is one slider button that is broken on this board, but it's on the one that controls the sound on my computer. So every time I turn it up or down, this little knob flies off, and it's very, very aggravating. Very aggravating. All right, give me just a minute. I will be right back. Please don't go anywhere, you icons. All right, y'all, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the chaos.
It's the most anticipated WNBA in history. And you know what that means. Court is back in session. Welcome to Queens of the Court, an Odyssey original podcast. I'm your girl, Cheryl Swoop, and I'm Jordan Robinson. All WNBA season long, we'll be bringing you interviews with star athletes, analysis on your favorite teams, and lots of hot takes. Order in the court. Follow and listen to Queens of the Court on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Get in the game on the Rob Brown Show.
Only on the Fan.
The Fan.
Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show back on the radio. It is the Fan Upstate. I am Rob Brown running solo for you today. Be a part of the show. The Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone is open. 844-326-3663. 844-FAN-FONE. If you'd like to be a part of the radio broadcast, you can also text us at 71307. 71307. The text line is open right now. Send us a text to 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, FAN, F-A-N, and we will read them on the show. You can also X me at The Rob Brown Show, at The Rob Brown Show, and everybody in here at The Fan Upstate. Join our live stream as well, Facebook.com/The Fan Upstate, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate. YouTube also at The Rob Brown Show. And if you're on Twitch, if you got Twitch on your phone, you can watch the stream live on Twitch at The Rob Brown Show. All the different ways to get in touch with the show. Good morning to everybody that has joined us on the stream. Steven, Jacob, Trey, Huddy, Donovan. Good morning to all you guys. Streams up and running at all those sites. The Fan Upstate on Facebook and YouTube. The Rob Brown Show on YouTube and Twitch. We would love to have you join us. Thanks to Scotty from BMW who sent a text earlier. He said, Rob, the show kicks ass when you do it solo, man. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Scotty. Show kicks ass when Lonzo's here, too. Mainly because I can think less about buttons and more about wordsing. But we're getting through it, man. We're getting through it. That's how we roll. That's how we roll. All right. I do want to bring up something that Dabo Swinney yesterday brought up that I find very interesting. And I wanted to address it because I had not really thought about it. Now, I've said in years gone by that since the expanded playoffs became a conversation, that the expanded playoffs were going to change the way that college football operated. For all the people that have been saying, college football is too NFL-y for me now. Yeah, it's always been that way. It's just that, again, the only people who didn't get a piece of that pie were the people who played the game. Now they do. The expanded playoffs are going to make college football more NFL-y than anything else. And Dabo Swinney brought that up yesterday. He was asked about the expanded playoffs, and he got asked, is it changing the way that you approach college football? Is it changing the way that you are coaching this game, that you break down, analyze, prepare for this game? Does it change your thoughts? And Dabo brought up the words unintended consequences. And I think it's fair, but I also don't think that the unintended consequences are unknown consequences, all right? I think that this was a known possibility at the time that the decision got made, right? To me, unknown consequences are just that, unknown. I think these were known consequences. Whether or not they were intended consequences is probably up for discussion. And I would say probably not intended, but also known this is going to happen, right? Here's what Dabo brought up. He said, quote, you'll probably see some guys, if you're 4-4 and out of the playoffs, will probably head off to Arizona and train. You'll see some situations like the NFL where if the Ravens are in the playoffs and have it locked up with one more game that really means nothing, do you play Lamar in that game? Maybe you're 11-0 and have a rivalry game, but you have your biggest foe the next week in a conference championship game. And if you win that game, you're going to get a playoff bye. Those are things you'll see play out all through college football, end quote. And I think that's a very fair concern. Concern. Is it a concern? I don't know, man. Like, and I will acknowledge that because I got reminded yesterday by a dear friend of mine that it is important when you have these conversations to be cognizant of your biases, to recognize your biases, and to recognize how your biases will play into your thought process about any given thing. And I think that is abundantly fair to keep it a buck. I have a bias in this conversation, and that bias is that I'm an NFL dude, all right? I'm an NFL guy first. I love college football like I love college football more than I love like a solid chunk of my family. But I'm an NFL guy first, all right? If I was told tomorrow by some supreme intelligent being, Rob Brown, you only get to watch one level of football for the rest of your life, I'm taking the NFL as much as I love college ball. So I have an acknowledged bias here that I'm an NFL guy. And I wonder if the reason that this hypothetical, I don't want to say it doesn't bother me, because the thought that we might line up, and let's use the example in question here. Let's say hypothetically that we get to week 14 this year. Let's say hypothetically we get to week 14. Let's say hypothetically that the Clemson Tigers are 11-0. Let's say hypothetically they have already earned their berth in the ACC championship game. And we also know that the winner of the ACC championship game is obviously going to make their way into the college football playoff. And let's say waiting for them on the other side of the college football, of the ACC championship game, waiting for them on the other side of the ACC championship game is the Florida State Seminoles, right? They got FSU waiting for them. They know the winner of that game is not just going to the playoff, but the winner of that game is also going to get a first-round bye in the playoffs. The winner of that game is going to get an extra week of rest and relaxation, right? So, if you're Clemson and you're going into the final week of the season, and the final week of the season is South Carolina. And let's say South Carolina's coming into that game. Hell, let's give them 6-5. All right, let's give them the chance to get 7 wins. It's a good team. Not a great team, but it's a good team. If you're Dabo Swinney, is there a world where you decide that you are not going to throw your best at South Carolina? Is there a world in which you go, okay, the goal is win a national championship. The goal is step 1, win the conference. Step 2, make the playoffs. Step 3, win in the playoffs. Step 4, win a natty. That's the goals, right? Like, let's not pretend that that's not the goal. It is. So if that's the goal and you're set to line it up with South Carolina, you're 11-0. Florida State's already locked in. Clemson is already locked in. FSU is entering their contest against the Gators. And let's say Florida State, with a loss to Clemson in the regular season. Let's say Florida State has to win against Florida State. So what you know coming into that week is this. You know coming into that week, you're already in. You're going. No questions asked. You're locked in. Florida State has to play and beat the Florida Gators to get in, which means that they're going to keep the Momo up. They got to go play. They got to go play. They got to go fight. They got to go exhaust themselves. An extra week off is probably not all that bad, right? An extra week off to rest an R&R, to get your young guys some XP, because the playoffs are going to be hard, man. Playoffs are going to be tough. If you are set up knowing the playoffs are going to be tough, you can not only rest your guys, but you can earn a bye week to rest your guys again, and you can get some valuable XP for your depth providers. You can get some valuable XP for the guys that may be called upon in the playoffs to step up, to have their moment, to build a little Momo, just in case, right? Because you're up against Florida State and your left guard goes down. Now your backup left guard has got a game under the belt as a starter, has got a game under the belt of XP. And then if you get into the playoffs and he's still out, great, he's got 2 games. Is there a world in which Dabo Swinney would sit some of the boys down? Is there a world where Dabo doesn't bring his starters into that equation? Is there a world where Dabo says, Cade, you've done an excellent job. Cade, you've played well. You got us to 11-0. You brought us to an ACC title game. You got us. And then sits them down and goes with the backup, goes whoever steps into that number 2 role, which he did give us a clue yesterday. We'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But is there a world in which Dabo Swinney says, starters, have a nice Saturday. Have a nice Saturday off. Maybe runs them out there for like 2 or 3 series to be comfortable, 2 or 3 series to keep their Momo up, 2 or 3 series to make sure they keep the rust off, right? And then he sits them down. And now all of the sudden, the Palmetto Bowl rivalry is South Carolina's starters taking on Clemson's backups. South Carolina's starters taking on Clemson's reserves in a rivalry game, in a game that we all look forward to every year, right? But the only thing that matters in that game, let's be real, the only thing that matters in that game is what? The only thing that matters in that game is pride. I mean, for Clemson, the win matters because it gets you into it keeps you undefeated, but it doesn't matter. 11-1 in the ACC title game is the same as 12-0 and in the ACC title game. So that game really does in practicality purposes. That game doesn't really mean anything, like at all. So is Dabo correct with his hypothetical that there is a world which has an unintended consequence? And again, I don't think it was an unknown consequence, which makes it hard to say it was unintended. I don't know if it was or was not. I don't think it was unknown. I think they knew this was a possibility. Is there a world in which we end up with a boring-ass rivalry Saturday because all the teams that have made their, if they know, have made their conference championship game? We know Ohio State's locked in. How about that? What if Ohio State and Michigan both enter that game at 11-0? What if they both enter the game knowing they're in the Big Ten championship game a week later? There's no divisions. What if they both enter that game knowing they're in next week? And not only knowing they're in next week, but knowing they're in next week and they are playing each other again next week for the Big Ten title and a bye week. Do we end up seeing the game on Rivalry Saturday get played between the Wolverine backups and the Buckeye backups, and then they turn it around a week later? What if one team is fighting for a spot and the other's not? What if Ohio State is 11-0, and what if Michigan is 10-1? Michigan is playing for the opportunity to maybe outpace, let's say, Penn State and find their way in. Ohio State's not. They're already locked in. Now they've got a decision to make. Do we run out the starters, try to beat Michigan and keep them out of the Big Ten championship? Or do we not worry about who we are playing next week? We go out there, we give our starters a couple of reps, then we sit them down. We let our backups play, and if our backups beat Michigan, great. And if our backups lose to Michigan, who the hell cares? We're coming back after them again next week. I thought a lot about what Dabo said yesterday when he said what he said at the presser. I don't think these could have been. Unintended consequences. I think they were known consequences. I think they knew this was not just a possibility, but very likely the most likely possibility. Is that a bad thing for college football? It's bad for rivalry games. That's for sure. It's bad for rivalry games if it becomes a big problem. It's bad for rivalry games. But is it bad for college football? Like I said, I acknowledge that I have an inherent bias as an NFL guy who watches this every year. Every year we get to a Week 18, and every year we get to a Week 18 where there's a divisional rivalry at play. Bills-Dolphins, Saints-Falcons, Green Bay-Chicago, whatever. Every year we get to a spot where there's a rivalry divisional game in play, and one of those two teams sits down. Because it does not matter. They're already locked into the playoff and already locked into their seed. So it doesn't bother me that much. I've been watching that exact thing play out my entire life as an NFL fan. But I also acknowledge it's a different feel than college football fans have. What are your thoughts? Where do you land? How do you feel about this? 71307, start your text with FAN, F-A-N. We'll read them on the air. Tweet me at The Rob Brown Show. 844-326-3663 is the number. If you'd like to get in touch with us that way, holler at me. Let's have some fun. I want your thoughts on this take from Dabo yesterday on The Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
Chuck Sanders, here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive. Teams around the NFL getting set to report to training.
Donovan, I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you very much, man.
That includes top overall pick Caleb Williams, who signed his 4-year deal with the team. The 22-year-old inked his $39 million rookie contract, which includes a $25.5 million signing bonus. 9th overall pick Rome Odunze also signed his rookie contract on Tuesday. Chiefs rookies are already in camp. Veterans do it on the 20th. Kansas City looking to win its 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes.
I'm extremely excited. I mean, we added a lot of speed. Obviously, y'all know that. But we also added just players in every single.
Hey, man. Give me just a second, stream. I will return ever so briefly. Don't go anywhere. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown rolling solo with you today. If you'd like to be a part of the program, now's a wonderful opportunity to do it. 844-326-3663. That is the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Text us 71307. 71307 is the number if you'd like to come at us in that direction on the text line. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, FAN, F-A-M. We'll read them on the air. So, speaking yesterday was not just Dabo Swinney, who we got to spend a few minutes with at the end of the day. Also speaking yesterday was Clemson offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. One of the questions asked to Garrett Riley yesterday was his expectations for Cade Klubnik in 2024 as he enters his second full season as the Tigers starting quarterback after starting all 13 games last year. Now, I will say before I get to the comments of Riley that Dabo Swinney was asked about and discussed Cade Klubnik as well and basically said, hey, look, guys take time to grow. And he went on to say that you got to, if you take names and you really pay attention to names of guys that were written off after a par or subpar start to their career, you'd write off a lot of great quarterbacks. And he leans specifically on Bo Nix. Bo Nix, of course, got written out at Auburn. He goes to Oregon. It was a very slow start to his career. All Bo Nix did last year was become a Heisman finalist and get the Oregon Ducks one Pac-12 rivalry away from a national championship opportunity, or at least a playoff spot. He said if people wrote off Bo Nix like they wrote off Cade Klubnik, you'd have missed out on a very good college football team last year. The college football team under Dan Lanning that has built a foundation to potentially return this year. So, and for the record, I do think that's very fair, to be honest. I do think that is a fair assertion. I believe that is a fair take on the situation as a whole. But Garrett Riley got asked about Cade Klubnik as well. What do you expect out of Cade Klubnik in the year 2024? Cade Klubnik said, quote, I expect a guy that's not going to panic, a guy that's going to understand what we're trying to do, minimizing some of the bad plays. Those are some of the things off the top of my head that we should be able to see this fall. He said, with all the things that kind of went on in our season, a good problem to have with a guy like Cade is at times he's one of those that really believes in himself, which is awesome, but at times you can try to do a little bit too much. When certain guys were missing or maybe a little thin in certain spots, maybe the added pressure of feeling like he had to do a little bit too much probably crept in at times, but as the season went on, I think he learned from that. I think he understood that a little bit better. And really, I think the game kind of slowed down for him each and every week. That's really what I want to see as you look through it chronologically, end quote. Again, is it coach speak? Yes. Do I expect that any coach is going to walk into a media open house, get asked about his highly touted recruit quarterback who had a mediocre year the year before and go, yeah, he stinks. Yeah, it turns out he's just not that good. Turns out we can't develop him. Turns out he's not that guy. No, of course it's going to be all completely complimentary. Of course, it's going to be a pump that guy up kind of thing. Of course, it's going to be a we're not worried about him. He's a stud. He sees the game differently. He reacts to the game differently. He's got a different vibe for the game now. Of course, you expect that. But I also don't think it's unfair. I also don't think it's unfair for that to be what is placed at the feet of Cade Klubnik in year number 2 of being a full-time starter. I don't think it's unfair to say what I expect is to see a guy who doesn't overdo it. What I expect is to see a guy who understands the role, who fits into the role, who fills the role, and does not try to be a hero. does not try to go over the top, does not try to be a dude that puts so much into it that he overcooks, which is a reality, right? We're going to talk about some NFL in the next hour. And one of the players we're going to talk about is Josh Allen. And one of the reasons we're going to talk about Josh Allen is because, well, there was a conversation yesterday led by Dan Orlovsky, which is where my favorite new haters soundbite comes from. A soundbite in which Orlovsky said about an NFL exec
Who could be the biggest hater and say the dumbest stuff?
Love that clip. We're going to play the full one for you in the next hour. But I think there is a little bit of what you're talking about with Cade Klubnik in Josh Allen. I think there are spots, I think there are times where Josh Allen tries to do too much. I think don't get me wrong, that's part of the reason that Josh Allen is, in my ever so humble yet frequently correct opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Certainly top 3 in my NFL quarterback rankings, which, by the way, we will do our NFL quarterback rankings later in the show, because after all of the conversation about Josh Allen yesterday, I think it's an interesting one to have, to be quite honest with you. So I'll give you my top 10 NFL quarterbacks, at least in terms of expected performance, coming up later on in the show. But what I will say right now is I think there's a little bit of that in Josh Allen. I think there's a little bit of that in Cade Klubnik. I think there's a little bit of, I have to be the man. I got to be that. And don't get me wrong. I think that is going to be an inevitability with Clemson quarterbacks as long as Dabo's in charge. Because the string of great success that Dabo had, a lot of that was spurred on by the quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence, you all know the names. And so I think anybody who steps into that role and into that role at that school is going to almost by default have this belief that I've got to join that crew. I got to join that crowd. I got to get my name mentioned in that conversation. I got to be a part of that. And it may lead them to do too much. It may lead them to be a little extra, if you will. It may lead them to try to overcook like Josh Allen does. So for the primary focus for Cade Klubnik, according to Garrett Riley, to be the guy who slows down, who sees the game, who works through the game, who understands the game and understands the spots where he needs to, while he thinks do more, not do more. I think it's more than fair that is the take from Garrett Riley on Cade Klubnik. Questions about Kyrie Irving not being considered for the U.S. basketball team were answered yesterday when the Dallas Mavericks announced Irving required surgery on a broken left hand he suffered while training earlier this month. Dallas did not provide a timetable for the recovery of the 32-year-old 8-time All-Star. The Southeastern Conference coordinator of officials, John McDade, said yesterday SEC schools will not be penalized for using the horns down hand sign against Texas. McDade said the act is, quote, not offensive to the census, end quote, and did not meet the qualifications for a penalty. An official for the U.S. Department of Education said yesterday Title IX rules will apply to revenue dollars that schools share with college athletes, but that the department would not yet provide guidance on what that might look like. Catherine Lamont said schools must provide equal athletic opportunities based on sex, including with respect to benefits. The Rob Brown Show rolls on 2 hours after this on the Fan Upstate. All right. Hang in there, guys. I'm taking a quick break to hit the restroom. I'll be right back. of the Rob Brown Show starts now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful to have you. I am Rob Brown, rolling solo today. Be a part of the show, 844-326-3663. That is 844-FAN-FONE. If you want to jump on board, now is a spectacular time to do that. You can also shoot us a text at 71307, 71307. Start that text with FAN, F-A-N, and we will read it on the show. You guys are, I'm not going to lie, you're real quiet today, all right? You're real quiet today. I need y'all to pick up the pace, all right? I am not one of those hosts that thinks that, oh, the show is better when there's more of me and less of you. Quite the opposite. I think the show is the best when you guys are a part of it. I think the show is better when you're a part of it. So what I would like you to do is get in here and be a part of it. I have given you a lot of things that we have talked about so far this morning. I have given you a lot of stuff to discuss on the show today. I have talked to you quite a bit about the Dabo Swinney presser from yesterday that Cole Bryson and I attended. I have given you some thoughts on Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley and the conversation that he had yesterday. Like, we've had plenty of stuff that we've gotten into on the program today that I would love your reaction to. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling with a few more things. Kirby Smart at the University of Georgia is a very smart boy, all right? Clearly, based on what you're seeing right now, turns out Kirby Smart knows how to run a football program, does he not? And I think he deserves credit for what he's built, and I think he deserves credit for how he's built it. But there's a bit of a problemo going on right now at the University of Georgia. That problem, of course, is the fact that Kirby's players can't stop being idiots. They just can't stop being dumb. And frankly, I don't understand why. I don't understand why. It's like a constant string of reckless driving, over driving, DUI driving. Like it's just constant right now at the University of Georgia. They have had 7 players over the past couple of years that have been arrested or cited for reckless driving. That is absolutely, I don't care how you dice it up, that's not good, okay? So Kirby Smart at SEC Media Days did not go into detail about in-house suspensions or punishment for the most recent pair of Georgia players to get busted up for being jackasses on the highway. Smail Mondon and Bo Hewley are the pair of Georgia dogs arrested on traffic-related charges last week. The Georgia coach did go into at least one punishment perspective. According to Smart, players involved in off-field incidents like traffic arrest are subject to fines from the program's NIL collective. According to a report from Dogs 24/7, Kirby Smart said, quote, "Our Classic City collective for over a year has been substantially fighting guys for those things. That's not something that's new. That's something that has been going on that's outside of my jurisdiction, and they decided to do and implement and have done a considerable amount. We're searching and trying to find the best ways." CBS Sports went a little deeper down the rabbit hole on this in an article put up by Shehan Jayaraja and John Talty. They wrote this in their article, quote, Sources told CBS Sports' John Talty that collectives have been slowly starting wading into the waters of punishment and enforcement. Another agent told CBS Sports that some collectives are also fining athletes for skipping classes as well. One collective leader said, quote, "It's happening at a few places. It's starting to be more widely adopted," end quote. However, it's not without controversy. NIL collective lawyer Mitt Winter cautioned that while withholding payments to athletes is legal, it also treads murky waters regarding players' potential employment status. Winter said, quote, "Like any other contract, the parties are free to agree to anything that's not illegal, and it's not illegal for a business to fine a contractor for certain behavior. But doing things like this could cross the line into the athletes being considered employees of the collective, since the collective is controlling their behavior. And if the directive to fine the athletes is coming from coaches or the school, that could also create a number of legal issues," end quote. One SEC coach told CBS Sports about a possible negative impact of NIL fines, quote, "What it will do is affect recruiting." CBS Sports write that, quote, "Counting Mondin and Hewley, more than 20 Georgia players have been ticketed for traffic-related charges over the past 18 months. Of those, at least 7 have been arrested. In January of 23, Georgia football player Devin Willock and staffer Chandler LaCroix were killed in a deadly car accident while celebrating the Bulldogs' 2022 national championship. Police allege that LaCroix was racing with then-player Jalen Carter when her car crashed. Smart showed concern about the unusually high number of incidents, but defended his program's efforts to address the problem during SEC Media Days yesterday. He said on the podium, quote, "I think the number one thing is that it's disappointing anytime you have a situation like that. You want your kids, your players, to make better decisions. I always say you can't be outcome related. I'm very disappointed with the outcomes, but I am very pleased with the process we've put in terms of education, driver safety, requiring defensive driving education, talking about it, having leaders stand up and talk about it, bringing speakers in, suspending or dismissing players. I don't know to this point any college football coaches who have suspended a player for a driving citation. We have. We've also dismissed players based on driving citations. No one has done that. Hopefully they get the idea, the information. But we have a really good locker room. I feel really good about that. I love the players we have. We've got good kids," end quote. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, is it the job of the NIL to handle this, right? Like, doesn't it I don't know. And this is an emotional response from me. And I'm going to tell you, as somebody who has had a family member, a direct relative lost due to drunk driving, I have to acknowledge and keep it a buck that, yeah, it's an emotional story for me. And I'm sure if any of you have lost a family member, relative, friend, or loved one to a drunk driver, it's probably a big deal to you too. If you've lost somebody to a reckless driver, it's a big deal. I've got a dear friend of mine that lives back down in Pensacola, Florida. Well, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I've got a dear friend of mine who was on his motorcycle and was hit by a reckless driver a number of years ago, whose life will never be the same. He will be dealing with issues caused by multiple injuries for the rest of his life. And he will be dealing with these issues the rest of his life because somebody somewhere acted a fool, was driving well above the speed limit, did not have time to react to him on his motorcycle, and crushed his bike with him on it. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal to me, right? Even if it's just an emotional response, it still feels like something that we should have to discuss. It still feels like something that we should absolutely be having a conversation about. So I don't love that these NIL collectives are going to be effectively allowed to act as the disciplinary arm of coaching staffs, right? Like, here's what it feels like to me. What it feels like to me, and Kirby can go out there and talk about, we've dismissed players and we've suspended players, and like, that's all well and good. Whom, right? Because I could be wrong. I got a real bad memory. I'm a big dumb boy, all right? I could be wrong. But has he done it to any, like, impact players? Has he done it to any big-time starters? Has he done it to anybody that is expected to, I don't know how else to put it, make a difference? I don't think the answer is yes. And in that spot, my response has been, doesn't it kind of feel like this is just a way for coaches to play the nice guy and not be the disciplinarian? Does it not feel like this is just kind of a way for and I'm using Kirby Smart as the example because this story is about him. Does it not feel like this is just a way for Kirby not to be the bad guy and to make recruiting easier, to make retention easier, right? In a spot where this is all more difficult than it's ever been before, where it's all more difficult to get players in, where it's all more difficult to keep players in, where it's all more difficult to not lose players to the transfer portal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At a point in time where that aspect of the job has gotten more difficult than it's ever been before, allowing the NIL collective to become the enforcement arm of your school, it kind of feels to me like this is a way for a guy like Kirby Smart or any other coach to not develop a reputation as a player disciplinarian, right? Like, hey, man, if you come to Georgia and you get caught being the 9,000th player on our program to drive recklessly, to go 100 miles an hour, to get busted up and beat up, if you become the 100th player in our program to do that, don't worry about it. Curb's not going to do anything. Maybe you'll lose a couple of grand out of your NIL check at the end of the month. Maybe it's we don't know what the fines are yet, right? Like, we don't know what the fines are yet. Maybe you'll lose a few smackers out of your NIL check, but you're not going to miss time. You're still going to be able to get out there and play. You're still going to be able to get out there and run. You're still going to be able to get out there and get your game film down. You're still going to be able to get out there and be a dude. Whereas with other programs, you'll get suspended, which means you're not playing, which means you are not getting game film down, which means you are not setting yourself up for the ability to develop, the ability to play, the ability to move forward. And if that is the case here, I kind of think that's a little weak. I kind of think that's a little weak. And again, I might be overcooking this take. I might be thinking about this take. I might be going too far down. Huddy K in the stream chat says Kirby the cowardly dog. What a line. What a bar. I like that. To me, the thought is do the right thing, right? Like, do the right thing. Handle this the right way. Do it the right way. Go in there. Lay some discipline down. Make it known that this is unacceptable, right? If a player does something dumb and it just makes him look bad, that's one thing. Like, all right. When a dude goes out there and drives 100 miles an hour in a drag race down an Athens County highway and puts the lives of other motorists in danger, I got a bigger problem. When people are dying, and people are dying, but when people are dying because of this, yeah, that's the point where I think you kind of need to like be a guy, right? I think at that point, you kind of need to hammer down and start levying some punishments, start levying some suspensions, start kicking some guys off the team because you're putting in danger the lives of all the people that are around you. And that's not good enough. It's not okay. It's not okay. So yeah, I just kind of feel in this spot like this is a bit of a letdown from Kirby Smart. I feel in this spot that this is a bit of a disappointment from Kirby Smart. I don't love it. I feel like it is a get out of jail free card from having to be the guy who develops a reputation of, yeah, if you screw up, you're going to get hammered for it. What I don't want to hear anymore is from Kirby Smart going, my primary goal is to make these good young men, responsible young men. Because this ain't how you do it, man. Putting the responsibility of discipline elsewhere is not how you do it. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to tell you about our friends at QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in non-surgical regenerative therapy for joint pain. If you are dealing with joint pain and you don't want to do that anymore, I want you to reach out to QC Kinetics right now. I want you to go to their website, QCKINETIX.com, QCKinetics.com. And when you do, allow them to explain to you all of the therapy that they use to make sure that you don't have to deal with that joint pain. You don't have to deal with that joint pain in your knees or your thighs or your ankles or your lower back, wherever you might be. You don't have to lose things that you love in life, about your life, to that joint pain. This is a therapy that professional athletes used to travel to the other side of the globe to receive. Now it's available right here in your own backyard, and it works. That's why QC Kinetics has tens of thousands of satisfied patients around America. Go to their website, QCkinetics.com, QCKINETIX.com, or give them a buzz today at 864-448-3772. 864-448-3772. Mention the Rob Brown Show and get your first consultation for free with our friends at QC Kinetics. All right, guys, stay right there. I'm going to go replace my water here, and I'll come right back. Please don't leave. right, y'all. We are back.
Let's hear from Mark Lynch, the president of Jeff Lynch Appliance Center.
Dear Heavenly Father, we love you. We thank you as you remind us in 2 Timothy 1:7 that you have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Forgive us when we fear and we don't trust you. Help us to confess our sins about fear and to trust you in everything we do. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
You've just heard from Mark Lynch, the president of Jeff Lynch Appliance Center.
Look at your cup holder. It's empty. And you're feeling thirsty. Head to a nearby convenience store and fill it with a Pepsi Zero Sugar, Mountain Dew, or Starry. Grab a delicious, refreshing Pepsi for the road.
I learned it from my adopted mom. Hold my hand.
You hold my hand. Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
We get it. Attention spans just aren't what they used to be. Heads in social media and eyes on Netflix. But what do people do with their ears? Well, for one, they're listening to audio. Americans spend 4.4 hours with audio every day. Oh, and you want the proof? Well, you just sat through this ad that's now approaching 30 seconds. What could you say to a potential customer in 30 seconds? Let Odyssey put together a media plan tailor-made for your unique marketing needs. Advertise with Odyssey. Visit ads.odyssey.com.
Today, partly cloudy, high 92, low 78.
Weather brought to you by Staples. Your local Staples store has hot deals and super low prices on everything for back to school, even technology. Save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples.
Sponsored by ChumbaCasino.com. Play social games online for free. Head to ChumbaCasino.com now to join the Chumba fun and experience the thrill of the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
No need to check the clock. It's Rob Brown time. Now, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on the Fan Upstate.
71307, the number to the text line this morning. Start your text with FAN, FAM. We'll read them on the air. Texture said, Rob, this is a nationwide problem, too. Look at the players in the NFL that have been arrested for DWI or similar offenses like Jordan Addison and Rashee Rice. Yeah, it's more than fair. And I've said this a number of times. You guys know that I am, to the chagrin of many, not adverse to diving into philosophical conversations and how they relate to sports, or at least try to keep them connected. Can I tell you a theory that I've worked with for a very long time? This is a little bit on all of us, okay? It's a little bit, I'm not going to say on all of us, but it's a little bit on all of us. It's a little bit on all of us because starting at the moment that somebody is recognized as having the potential of an elite athlete, starting at the moment, and when I say the moment, I mean it. I've got the example. I've said it on the air. I'll say it again. When I was in high school, I was a teammate on the basketball and football teams of a young man who was an electrifying athlete. And this young man would go on to a major Southeastern Conference university where he would rewrite the record books at his position. I am going to remain somewhat vague here because I don't necessarily want to reveal who it is. But I played on if you did the research, you will figure it out. But I played on a team. I played on a basketball and football team with this kid. And I can tell you of at least two separate occurrences where the dude did something that was very against team rules and there were no consequences, right? One of the ones that I lean on was my junior year. My basketball team went to the Florida High School State Championships. It was a Final Four in Lakeland, Florida. We showed up. We stayed night number one, no issues. We won our semifinal game, and then we went back to the hotel. And that night, when we went back to the hotel, a player from our rival high school who was friends with multiple guys on the team showed up to the hotel and brought his car. We were under a lockdown there, right? Like, of course we were. Don't leave the hotel. We're here on a business trip. Don't leave the hotel. This guy showed up, and this kid, along with a couple of other kids, got in the dude's car, and they went to downtown Lakeland. They just went out. They were just MIA for like a couple of hours. And then they came back, and like a bunch of stinking geniuses, they went down into the parking lot, and they all blazed up some hippie lettuce in the parking lot of the hotel. It, of course, got reported. They didn't get arrested, but the head coach found them. And wouldn't you know it, all year long we have been told, if you get caught doing these things, you will sit down our next game. And the coach went so far as to say at one point during the season, I don't care if it's for the freaking state championship game. If you get caught violating these rules, you will not play in the next game. Well, kid on our team, elite caliber athlete, reason that we were there, gets busted, not just violating team curfew, not just violating team lockdown, not just violating every rule we got assigned to us when we got there, but then got caught lighting up a joint in the parking lot with somebody he wasn't supposed to be around anyway. What do you think happened to that guy? Coach came out. Coach made him run a few sprints up and down the parking lot. And then, wouldn't you know it, the next day when we played for a state championship game, guess who was in the starting lineup? In football. Senior year, this kid. I had already graduated, but I was still in the area. Senior year, as this kid gets prepped, everybody knew he was going to be a high-level 4, borderline 5-star recruit. And about halfway through the football season, my dude got busted up for reckless driving. Like reckless driving. Did the head coach of the basketball team? Excuse me, of the football team suspend this kid? No. Not only did he not, but the head coach of the football team made him, here was his punishment, stand in front of the rest of the team and apologize to them. That was it. That was punishment. Stand in front of your teammates and apologize to them. No suspension. No sit down. No extra workouts. Nope. Apologize to your teammates. That was it. And then, as the head football coach at the time, was a big fan of the university that this player would eventually go on to play for, the head football coach spent a massive amount of time helping get this kid his scholarship, helping get this kid on that program. When kids display elite levels of athletic prowess, we, as a whole, have a tendency to let them off the hook for doing wrong. And I get it, man. Like, if it is your job to win competitions, you want the best players you can get on the team. And since we are at a point, good, bad, fair, ugly, not fair, whatever. Since we are at a point now in our sports culture that we demand wins or you're fired. And I'm talking all the way down to the high school level, right? All the way down to the high school level. There's a local coach around here. Great guy. Every kid that plays for him's got nothing but good things to say. But the team is expecting more. They're not getting the wins they want. They're not getting the postseason success that they want. And he's on the hot seat. All right? I know he's on the hot seat. I've been told he's on the hot seat by people who are the people who can put him on the hot seat. We put emphasis on winning over everything else. Everything else. And because we put winning over everything else, coaches, by and large, are not going to go out of their way to punish the best athletes, in order to create a world in which these kids learn a lesson. So they learn this. They are okay with this when they're at that level. And then what happens when they find their way to a major school? They've never had to deal with consequences before. And then what happens at the major schools? Well, when you get guys like Kirby Smart, who will allow the most discipline they receive to be a loss of a couple of zeros off of their NIL check, why would they do anything different? There's no rules, there's no consequences, right? And then what happens when they get to the NFL, where they know they are the best of the best? Man, if you make it onto an NFL practice squad, you are one of the best 300 football players in the United States of America. What? Practice squad players make over $500,000 a year just to practice. Why do you think they would have consequences? So this is kind of my problem. And on one hand, yeah, I am beating up on Kirby Smart a little bit for this. I am getting after Kirby a little bit for this. But Kirby ain't the only one, right? It just happens to be that he's the one that actually let that cat out of that bag. He's the one that kind of came out and said, yeah, we're not really, we've suspended guys. We've released guys. Who? Was it somebody that mattered? Or was it somebody that you went, if we go ahead and cut this guy, we get a roster spot to transfer another highly touted transfer or recruit in, right? It doesn't work for me. But at the same time, as long as we keep putting, I won't name any specific Baltimore Raven linebackers, into spots of veneration, despite what they do or don't do, I can't really be all that shocked, to be honest with you. I can't really be all that shocked when these players don't understand that that's not how the real world works. Texas said, Rob, the monetary punishments clearly aren't making a difference. It's a slap on the wrist, and it's clearly not making an impact at Georgia. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the point that I'm driving at here, right? Like, it's not doing anything. It's still happening. Literally happened last week. But if we're going to hand out trophies and awards and opportunities to kids who do this kind of stuff, and there's never a consequence to it, then stop being surprised when they get to D1 programs. Stop being surprised when they get to the NFL and the behavior doesn't change. What reason have we given them for it to change? Hey, before we get to a break, I want to tell you about my friends at New Life Weight Loss. I've been working with New Life here for a couple of months now. Yesterday after work, the lady friend said, I need to go shopping. I need a little retail therapy. Can this be our date this week? And I said, yeah. So we went shopping. And I'm going to be straight up with you. I went with every intention of buying nothing. I had no reason. I had no desire to buy anything. All right? I got clothes. I don't need more. But we went to a store, and this particular store that we went to had some really cool shirts. Shirts that, as a fat guy,
1307. Keyword fan. This is the Rob Brown Show with Lonzo. Mornings on the Fan. Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show continues. It's the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Brown with you this morning, rolling solo and happy to do it. Be a part of the show, 844-326-3663. Text us, 71307, 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, and we will read them on the air this morning. Here's I'm not going to spend, I don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but I do think it is worth bringing up. Shane Beamer at SEC Media Days was asked about, and there is another part of this conversation that we will get to because I do think it connects to something Debo Swinney talked about yesterday as well. Shane Beamer was asked about the fact that we are seeing head coaches at FCS schools get hired to become positional coaches and assistant coaches at FBS schools. And there are a lot of folks out there that are upset about that. There's a lot of folks up there that are saying this, it's bad for it's bad for college football. It's bad for low-level football, etc. This kind of harkens back to what we said yesterday. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Earlier this hour. What is happening to me right now? Earlier this hour. The impetus is on winning. If you're a coach and you don't win, you lose your job. We can sit here all day and say that we care about, the betterment of the kids, and we care about the evolution to the kids, and we care about making them responsible members of society, and we care about the education, we care about the academics, we care. But the reality is we care about winning more than we care about anything else. That's okay. That's all right. I don't think anybody cares, at least not at the highest level, about Sean Elliott leaving Georgia State to become South Carolina's tight ends coach and run game coordinator. I don't think anybody cares at all. There's an article up on footballscoop.com written by Zach Barnett in which he waxes poetically. He said, quote, "I wondered, was there any duty of collegial responsibility for head coaches higher up on the food chain to not disrupt life at lower level programs? If not, any feelings of remorse or regret? After all, position coaches come and go, but ultimately every player and coach in each program is where they are because the head coach wants them there." At SEC Media Days in Dallas on Monday, South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer said his duty to his employer outweighed any larger duties to the game. Beamer said, quote, "I've always got to do what's best for my program. I left that decision up to Sean, what he felt was best for he and his family. Certainly the timing was the deal for Georgia State. At the same time, my responsibility is to my players and coaches and fans, and my bosses is to always do what's best for South Carolina football. It was a move that Sean wanted to make for personal reasons, and that's what he did." Dating back to February, Sean Elliott said, "This was not a professional move, but a personal move. We've made it work for 7 years with my family still living in Columbia, and even I thought about not coaching this year. I had promised my daughter that I would be there for her senior year of high school, and when this opportunity came up to go back to South Carolina and coach again, it was something I could not pass up," end quote. Elliott took a pay cut and moving from Georgia State to South Carolina. Although, of course, he did eliminate a 3-hour commute from Atlanta to Columbia back and forth. He earned just over $800,000 at Georgia State last year. He will make $750,000 at South Carolina. Shane's not wrong here, okay? Shane's not wrong. Coaches hop all the time. And now, especially that, and Dabo Swinney talked about this yesterday, which is what I'd like to get to as well. Dabo Swinney pointed out yesterday when he was asked about the new rule in college football that will allow analysts to do on-field coaching, which is something that has not been the case in years gone by, right? If you were an analyst, you were an analyst. You couldn't coach. If you were an analyst, you were an analyst. You couldn't have a headset on. If you were an analyst, you couldn't do anything for practice or game day. And now that's not so much the case. That's not so much the case anymore. Now you can have analysts that coach. Now you can have analysts that allow you, or have analysts that are allowed to put on the headset and go out on the practice field and actually work with players. And Dabo said yesterday, basically everybody in that program now, said everybody in that program at this point has some coaching title or responsibility, right? He was pointing out that he's got a recruiting coordinator who's now the assistant defensive ends coach, and he's got this guy over here that's now the assistant outside linebackers coach or whatever. With that being the case, the more brains that I can get into the room that see the game, know the game, can teach the game, can coach the game, the better off I'm going to be. And as much as it sucks for Georgia State, going back to the Sean Elliott departure from Georgia State, Sean Elliott announced his departure on February 15th. Georgia State practices were already underway. Like, it was a Friday, and the Panthers canceled practice because their head coach just popped in and went, oh, by the way, I don't go here no more. This ain't my school no mas. I'm out. I'm going back up to Columbia. It is not Shane's job or anybody else's job to make sure that the schools under them are as well off as they can possibly be. You know, for the record, it never has been, right? Never has been. I think I've said this a million times. I'm sure I'll say it more. The most interesting thing about all of the changes and updates that are going on right now with college football, the most interesting thing to me is watching fans react to things that if you were dialed in with any level of intensity in years gone by, you already knew, right? You already knew. Now, it is a little bit out of the norm that an FCS head coach would take an FBS assistant coaching position, for sure. That's kind of interesting. But it also makes sense, right? He's an SEC coach now. He's a member of the Southeastern Conference now. Jobs are going to be looking for him more than he's going to be looking for jobs. That's the move. And then you add in the family stuff, right? His family's from Columbia. His family was in Columbia. He was having to commute back and forth from Columbia. It's a good move personally, for sure. But to respond to not just the concept of this article that was written, but to respond to the question that was asked by its author, Zach Barnett, who said, I wondered, was there any duty of collegiate responsibility for head coaches higher up on the food chain to not disrupt life at lower level programs? If not, any feelings of remorse or regret? The answer is no. The answer is no. The answer is that's not the case. And it never has been, right? It never has been the responsibility of upper level coaches in upper level programs to ensure that lower level coaches and lower level programs weren't disrupted. It never has been. But welcome to America, The have-nots are never going to be given special protections from the has-is. From the has-is. They're never going to get that special protection because that's not how it works. That's not the system that we all live under. So I don't know. I read this and I'm like why? Why would that be a thing? Why would that be a thing that you would lean on? Why would that be a thing that you fall back on? Why would that be a thing that you hang on when it's never been that way? It's never been that way. It's never been something that upper level coaches care about. It's never been a thing that upper level coaches are worried about. Never. So I don't know why we start now. The only difference now is college football is now more off in the open, right? It's now more accessible. It's now more viewable. You're now more exposed to it. The ugly side of it, right? We all used to love to pretend that when it came to college football, you basically were in a spot where you weren't exposed to the nastiness of it. So we all got to pretend every day that it's about the pride and the pageantry and the tradition and this and that and the other. But now you got to stare it in the face that it's not that way. Now you got to stare it in the face that it's every bit the business the NFL is. Now you got to stare it in the face that it is exactly the same as every other business. It's not the special warm, fuzzy feel-goods you thought it was. If Shane Beamer can make his program better by taking Georgia Southern's head coach 10 minutes before practice, he's going to take him. And I got news for you. So would every other coach. So would every other coach. If they went, all right, so I can take the head coach at an FCS school 3 weeks into the regular season. If they could get that guy and it made their team better, they're going to do it. Like I said, it is just another example that nothing has changed except you can't pretend it's just all some good vibes only romantic space anymore, college football. It's just not. Major League Baseball game last night won by the American League again. That is 10 out of the last 11 after a 5-3 come-from-behind victory over the NL. Rookie Paul Skeens got the start for the National League, forced Yankee star Aaron Judge to ground out for a scoreless first inning after a 3-run dinger from Dodger star Shohei Ohtani. Game MVP Jarren Duran took Hunter Green deep to give the AL the lead for good. Duran is the first Red Sox player since J.D. Drew in 2008 to win the All-Star MVP. San Francisco wide receiver Brandon Ayuk requested a trade from the team yesterday. Ayuk's extension talks with San Francisco have stalled, but Adam Schefter of ESPN reports that while teams have inquired about Ayuk, the team is refusing conversations. Ayuk has 1 year remaining on his rookie contract. And the SEC announced yesterday that the horns down gesture frequently thrown at Texas players will not be penalized in the SEC. The official coordinator, John McDade, said the act is not, quote, offensive to the senses, end quote, and does not meet the qualifications for a penalty. Hayden Asmario from the BetQL Network next on The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Hello, Mario.
In the new spot.
No, not the new spot. Still in Lonzo's spot. He's on vacation, and I am good enough to host and produce.
So the first time I ever shadowed someone in radio, the guy had to host and produce, and I've never seen a guy more stressed in my life. I think the guy was freaking out.
Yeah, it's the first couple times you do tricky. So when I worked at my station down in Destin, I hosted and produced it. Jeez, Louise. Hosted and produced both the 4-hour morning drive and 3-hour afternoon drive by myself for 3.5 years.
Oh gosh.
Making $7.25 an hour. Pretty stellar.
Gotta love the business. I don't know. Oh, that could be the reason why I had caps lock on.
Save big on tech for school with super low Staples hot deals. Right now, get up to $300 off select PC.
Have you ever? This is one of when I would have to host and produce. There's one time where I was testing the mics, and as soon as I went to test the mics, I pressed record, and then when after the person came out, I pressed stop record. The hour interview, killer interview.
Woof.
I was so pissed.
Woof.
Oh, I was so mad.
All right, we're coming back. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Away we go. The final hour of the Rob Brown Show is underway now. I am Rob Brown, filling in for Lonzo while also being Rob Brown. Yes, I am that good. Thank you very much for pointing it out, every person everywhere listening to this. Cole Bryson going to join us in the next segment. Cole was down there at Clemson Media Day open house exhibition / press conference, whatever you want to call it. He was there all day. I got there in time for the Dabo presser, but we'll talk to Cole about some of his thoughts with a day in the rearview mirror. But before we get to Cole, we welcome another young man that I have shared plenty of airwaves with over the past 3 years. He is the executive producer for BetMGM Tonight on the BetQL Network. He used to be the executive producer of a fantastic show called Bet for the Cycle, which is every Saturday from noon to 4 on the BetQL Network, hosted by two very, very sexy individuals every single day, every single Saturday. This guy, not as much. Joining us here on the show, hating ass Mario, a.k.a. Mario Heron, here on the show. What's up, dog?
What's up, man? How are you doing with life without Lonzo? I imagine that can be pretty hard. I imagine you miss his pretty face sitting across from you or next to you.
I mean, listen.
Never been in the studio.
I am more than good enough to do this by myself, all right? Yes, I do miss Lonzo. You know why? Because, and I've said this many times in my career, Mario, the ability to do something does not mean I have the desire to do something. Lonzo's very good at his job, and I'd rather him do it than me do it.
That's extremely fair. And as for someone that used to produce and host and seen, I've mentioned in our break that I shut out someone for the first time. I was like 18 and was watching the guy work the board and also host. It gave me anxiety. And so I wish nothing but the best for you because I imagine that has a lot right now.
I mean,
but you look
again,
good.
Yeah, thanks, bud. I appreciate that. 40 pounds down, by the way. Killing it. Just killing the game right now.
You look really, really good.
I know. I agree. All right, let's get some stuff in here. Let's start as Mario is an NBA analyst for the BetQL network, as well as the EP of BetMGM Tonight, which you can hear every single weeknight on this station from 7 to 11 p.m. Team USA basketball. Saw a lot of people panicking because they had a close game against Australia, Mario. My take was, I'm not, because A, Australia is one of the best, probably 2 or 3 overall international teams at all, period, not just in the Olympics, A. And B, even though these guys are all freak athletes and the best of the best when it comes to the NBA, they had practiced together like 3 days. Like, I'm not super panicked. The line has moved, opened at minus 400 to win the gold medal. It has dropped now to minus 500, and it still feels like a layup of a bet ultimately to make. Did you see any of that game? And if so, what were your thoughts?
I mean, I think the concerning thing with the Team USA is just their defense. I think Giddey was able to get a lot of paint touches that if you watch the NBA from day to day, you're like, wow, he doesn't even get that in the NBA. He doesn't get that against the Mavs or, Hornets. Name an NBA team. He doesn't get that much paint touches as he did against USA. I think a little bit of that too is I think Kerr's trying to figure out what to do with Embiid. Embiid's one of the best players in the NBA, obviously MVP this past, 2 years ago. But in this kind of Olympic basketball and with the talent that's already on the team, he doesn't really work. Like, his best attribute is scoring, and in his position of playing the 5 and being like the big man, you just have to really focus on rebounding the basketball and defending the rim. Well, you have 2 guys that do that 20,000 times better than Embiid and Anthony Davis and in Bam. You should probably play those guys over Embiid. But on top of that, with all this talent you have to also think about the egos out there. Embiid not starting is probably a big hit on his ego. And, let's be honest, maybe causes a little bit of a bad attitude. Kerr's got to think about that, and Kerr's got to handle that, and that's going to be a tough thing to handle with that team and with Embiid. So the one thing I noticed right away is I wouldn't start Embiid anymore. Do I think he's going to do that? Maybe. Kerr's hinted that he might test out some different lineups with the team. But that's what I picked up right away. Anthony Davis has to start double-doubles in both the games, and their defense has to step up. But like you said, USA is going to walk away with the title. We do this every Olympics, Robin, and it cracks me up. It's like, watch out. This national team has 3 NBA players. It's like, watch out. We have 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy to me every single time. Like, awesome. This team has, Jokic. It's really hard for Jokic to be good when half the players on his team aren't playing in the best league in the world. You can honestly double Jokic, and you can't say that when you play him in the NBA.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this spurs back to the 06 games where we won bronze, and it's like it was such a one-off. And I also think that of every Olympic team we've sent so far, this team is the one that I genuinely feel confident saying, Mario, like, I think winning matters to this squad. And I think you can see that, right? Like, I think we've sent teams before that maybe it was a little bit more about the vacation. Maybe it was a little bit more about selling some red, white, and blue jerseys for that extra royalty scratch. Maybe it was about taking the family overseas to see somewhere they can go, whatever. But I watched this team and I listened to the comments of Seth Curry and I listened to the comments of LeBron James and I listened to the comments of all these players. And like, it just seems like this team has phenomenal chemistry. They're dialed in. They want to win. You and I have talked about Anthony Edwards saying, I'm the dude, I'm him. All the rest of these guys got to play through me. So you got a little bit of an edge. You got Seth Curry over here saying, playing on this team makes me feel like I'm a kid again. Like I could just go have fun playing basketball. And let's be real. If I can use it to my benefit, I will. LeBron James cares more about his damn image than anything else in the world right now. And if that means he wants to go win a gold so that he can get his really kick-ass Sports Illustrated cover photo too, so be it. I'm in. I look at this team and it just looks like a team that is a team and not a team of 12 dudes who are here for whatever reason.
You can obviously tell, and I think all of them think of, this is one of our last pieces to our legacy, right? Like, I think that's how Curry, LeBron, and Durant kind of see this, is like, this is the last hurrah for us to ever do this again. We want to go out on top and make sure people remember that we won a gold medal for the USA and want to represent the USA. And they're pretty open to saying, like, we want to dominate. Like, they don't just want to win, to your point. Like, they want to dominate. There's a clear message they want to send to the rest of the world when it comes to USA and comes to basketball. They have a lot of pride in this, which I think is all spectacular. And I think it's a cool thing that they're setting of. It's kind of like the setting up, if you will, of like the next generation. Like, it's like the older guys are there, and then also like the aspiring young are there. Like Anthony Edwards is there, and obviously, you know, you just mentioned his comments, you've mentioned him over and over again. But it's kind of the mentoring of these young guys of, hey, this is, you know, we're passing the torch to you guys to lead this next generation of USA basketball players, and you have to take the torch and make sure we stay dominant, stay number one, because that's something we care about. It's something we take pride in. And when they don't do that, it's very embarrassing. You know, you mentioned 06 or 04 is one of those years. First off, just a big swing and a miss having Larry, I think it was Larry Brown that was the coach, and he told Jason Kidd this is one of my favorite stories, but he told Jason Kidd on a fast break to jump stop at the free throw line, pass fake, and then make the pass. It's like, I don't know if you ever watched Jason Kidd before, Larry, but that's not really what he does. And so it's something that they all have pride in. It's something that they want to show that they're dominant. And it's honestly just, for me, it's a pass in the torch. Like I said, it's something really, really cool to see. And people were talking to me the other day, Robin. I'm curious if you think this. People were like, I don't really like to watch the Olympic basketball team because I just know they're going to win. I was like, all I want to do is watch the Olympic basketball team. It's the funnest thing in the Olympics to watch. Like, these are the best studs in the world. I want to see them play together, and who's number one. Yeah, I don't disagree. Listen, this is how I've put it before. I watch every Olympic event. I'm going to watch everything I can get my eyeballs on. All right. You can put, I'm watching break dancing. And by the end of these Olympics, I will be a break dancing machine. Not able to do it. My hamstrings are very, very weak at almost 40, but like, I'll be ready to judge competitions. Watching US basketball, at least what I hope it is, it's like when you turn on a video game, but then you turn on all the cheat codes, right? Like I'm turning on the invincibility code. I'm turning on the unlimited money code. I'm pushing in the code that gives me all the cars and all the guns and all the extra assets, whatever, because all I want to do is go in there, play God and decimate a city or whatever, right? Take down a whole army by myself. And sometimes that's fun. Sometimes that's a nice little break. But then also, that's not to say there won't be some games that get tough, right? If we see Australia in the medal round, we're going to have to play basketball. If we see France, they're going to run Rudy Gobert and Victor Wembanyama in the same lineup. Like, no one should be able to get a shot inside of 12 feet against that team. We're going to have to play and adapt our game to that. But yes, when we come up against Zambia, I want to see if the individual team total of 185 and a half hits or not, right? Like, sometimes you just want to sit back and actually enjoy freak athletes doing freak athletic stuff without your gut getting into a knot about whether or not you're going to win this one. Yeah, and to your point, like, I know Canada's got a lot of juice. It's like, oh, yeah, watch out for Canada and everything. Okay. We'll see about that. And I also get curious too, because obviously the rules are a little changed. Which player excels in that? Which player excels in a little bit more physicality? And who's like the alpha of the league? Who's the guy that's, when it comes to being the best of the best, they kind of look towards him. Who is that guy? And I'm always fascinated by that. I love the camp stories. I love that very, very much, of just little things you hear between all the guys. You saw the thing of Tatum saying, in fourth grade, LeBron didn't sign my autograph. I didn't get his autograph. He didn't sign my jersey. And LeBron goes, is that why he dunked on me in the Eastern Conference Finals? One, I can't believe LeBron even remembers that, or Tatum. And just a very funny thing. And also, Tatum's still a weirdo. I mean, that guy really gives me the creeps for some reason. All right, let's flip to a couple of other things. We got a few more minutes here with Hayden Asamario. Mario Herron from the BetQL Network joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Let's go to the NFL for just a minute. Brandon Ayuk requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. Adam Schefter is reporting that the 49ers have been telling teams on the horn they have no intention of trading that guy. And obviously not a ton of leverage for Brandon Ayuk right now, other than to say,
if you don't pay me this year, then bleep you, I'm out next year and you will get nothing back from me. Kind of an ugly situation for San Francisco, and to me, it's just kind of there because they paid Deebo Samuel, who kind of went through this same villain arc last year. How's this end up for the 49ers?
Ends up with Brandon Ayuk in a 49ers jersey playing this year. You looked at the past, you mentioned Deebo, and Fred Warner was another contract situation that they had. All those deals came very late in the summer and very leading up to training camp. So I don't think this is a big worry right now that the Niners haven't gotten a deal done. I think it's something that they will get done with Brandon Ayuk. Lynch is very good at keeping the core guys together. And I think he realizes he has a super team and realizes that there is a window here. The job's going to get done. Ayuk's going to be a Niner. They're all playing hardball right now, and a deal's going to get done, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL once again. That being said, though, I also want to be surprised if they did let Ayuk go. They just drafted a receiver this past draft, and they kind of hit on their picks. They don't really miss. And I don't know if you realize, Rob, but receiver talent kind of, I don't know, comes over and over again in the draft. There's never a shortage of talent. A part of me too is sitting there going, is it really that bad if you let Ayuk go? Is it really that bad?
Yeah, I'm wondering how much, if they are going to make another Super Bowl run this year, how valuable is Ayuk? They did get Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, who is a interesting pick. I'm not a big Ricky Pearsall guy. I think he can kind of be I don't want to say a gimmicky wide receiver, but kind of like your distraction wide receiver who occasionally pops one because he's faster than hell. I know Xavier Worthy was the guy, but Ricky's quick. And I think he kind of gives you that take the top off a defense angle. I don't know if I'm one of the few, and you can chime in on this too. ESPN put out their top 10 quarterbacks rankings, and Brock Purdy's not on the list, and I am totally fine with that. All right. I don't think Brock Purdy's great. I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback who got hooked up with more skill position talent than I've ever been able to put together on a Madden franchise on Xbox on Dynasty mode. He's got the hookup and a great coach in Shanahan. Honestly, I think if Shanahan would have had a top flight quarterback the last couple of years, San Francisco's got at least a Lombardi, maybe last year. I wonder how valuable Ayuk is when you have McCaffrey and when you have Kittle and when you have Deebo. And now if Ricky Pearsall is even, 90, 80% of what they want him to be when they made that draft move in the end of the first round, I think San Francisco can probably survive without Brandon Ayuk. What I'm not going to listen to is they'll be better by moving on, because no matter what you do, all you're trading him for right now is picks. And maybe you get a first and a second, a first and a third, and that's great for down the line. But if I'm San Francisco, I got to know this window's not open forever, and I got to go all in right now. And if that means I got to force Ayuk to play for me one more year and get nothing for him in return next year, there's no guarantee the window's still open next year. There is one that's open this year.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I wouldn't put Brock Purdy in the top 10 at all. I was looking at the list actually yesterday for the Bull Crew podcast, so you can find anywhere you get your podcast, and I kind of agree with where they put him. I think he's just sitting right outside the top 10. Obviously, if you let go of Ayuk next year and you don't get anything for him, that stinks. But like you said, I think the Niners can survive without him. I don't think they'll be better. I think that's a kind of a bold opinion to have. They're going to be better without Ayuk. I think they can survive. I don't think it would be like when they lost Deebo last year and there was a noticeable drop-off, one in Purdy and in the offense. I just don't see that happening with them. Ayuk is a very, very good player, and I think a very underrated receiver. But Deebo is so important in all aspects of the offense that it was a lot to lose him in that capability. But with the rookie receiver that they have, and then let's say they have, they get one next year, that receiver doesn't have tons of pressure on them to be this stud number one. If you get drafted by the Chargers, for example, there's a lot of pressure on Ladd McConkey to be the number one, and he's not a number one receiver, right? You go to the Niners, you're automatically the third option. You're sitting behind Deebo, you're sitting behind Kittle. A lot of receivers can't do that. That's not a hard assignment to have, And you have one of the best offensive minds that's going to get you open every single play. That's not a hard duty. So Ayuk's very talented. I get it, but at the same time, I agree with you. They'll be able to survive. Will they be better? I don't think so. But survive, yeah, they'll stay afloat and they'll still compete with the best of them. Because who else is going to knock them out in the NFC? The Eagles? Okay, Nick Sirianni could have another choke job down the year. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not. I'm not particularly worried about it. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be just fine. I also just don't know. Are we betting against the three-peat with Kansas City?
I want to so badly.
I do too, and I can't do it. I can't talk myself out of it. Because I don't think Miami's them. The Bills are going to take a big step back. Harbaugh's going to take a year or two to get set, to get Los Angeles ready to roll. Over in the NFC, like, who's that squad? Detroit, I'm interested in, right? Like, Detroit, maybe. San Francisco already proved they can't do it, and I don't think they're going to be any way better this year than they were last year, so I don't trust San Francisco. Like, I don't want to bet on the three-peat. There's a reason they would be the first. I just don't have anybody else I would bet to be the team that takes them out.
I was even trying, like, maybe the Bengals would be the option because they're fully healthy this year. Like, I wouldn't say the Ravens because they lost almost their whole coaching staff and half their freaking front office this past year. So, like, is it really going to be them? Bengals are healthy, okay. Bills, like you said, I'm expecting a major jump back from the Bills. The people that have, I mean, Vegas has them favored to win their division. I think that's insanity. Them, like, their odds for win the Super Bowl, I believe, are like tied with the Bengals. That's insane. Like, the Bills are gonna have the biggest step back of all time this year, and I'm looking forward to it. And I also think Josh Allen doesn't make it through the year, man. He's gonna have to run in the ball a lot more. It's gonna be a lot of hits on him. It's gonna be a tough one. If it's not the Bengals, I think it's no one else. I just don't see another team that beats it. And I think Xavier Worthy is gonna possibly win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, I think he's gonna have an insane year with them, and that stinks.
Mario Heron is the executive producer for BetMGM tonight, which airs every single weekday from 7 to 11 right here on the Fan Upstate. And Mario's on this show in the morning. I'll be on that show tonight at 7:20 to talk about who the hell knows what. Like, Mario sends me a rundown of this is what we're talking about on the show today. And then I get on with Ryan, Nick, and Trista, and it's just like something totally unrelated and different. So, we'll see.
We'll see. Also, congrats on the parlay win this week. And did you guys win? No. Oh, no. I heard you 20-1.
Goodbye, Mario. Goodbye. I don't need you. I don't know why. I don't know why you needed to say anything like that on my radio show. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I fully intend on train wrecking your show tonight. Cole Bryson, when we come back here in just a minute, will join us. He covered the entirety yesterday of the Clemson Media Open House. We will talk to Cole and find out what he thought after a conversation with Garrett Riley, Dabo Swinney, and others. That's next on the Rob Brown Show. That's next on the Fan Upstate. Did I make you get up out of bed early? What up? Yeah. No, I was in a different time slot in years gone by. This is my first year in the morning slot. Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the Carolinas' most trusted forecast.
Yep.
On the Fan Upstate. Few scattered showers and storms possible late. Blended clouds and sunshine develops high 95. Tonight, chance of storms low 72. Thursday, chance of storms 92. Chance of storms Friday 86. And chance of storms for the week.
Oh, I know.
Meteorologist Jennifer H. Here on the Fan Upstate. Currently, it's 77.
Yeah, no. So the shtick for me for these are to be live 6 to 10. I'm not super worried about interviews live. What I do is I will bring my recording board, mixing board, and computer. And once they start bringing me guys, I record them. So what we'll be able to do is until like on Monday from say like 10 to 2, anybody they bring to me, I'll be able to record and slice up and dice up and handle it. And then when you guys get there, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever time you get there, then interviews we get after that, unless they're a big one, we want to kind of split it up. Any interviews after that, I'll just let you guys record and set up however you want to up until you guys go live at 3. So no, I don't expect anybody live during the show for me. It's more just about doing the show live, recording them in the off, and then I'll run them back the next day since, I won't have anybody live the next day either. I'll just trot them back out the next day as, hey, yesterday I got a chance. Tyson, did you see how well I shifted from one conversation to the next? Like I know what I'm doing.
Almost like you're a professional, and I would say the only rebuttal would be Dabo's opening statement might have been.
It really was. It really was. But I'll tell you this, and we talked about this earlier in the show, Cole, and I do want to get into some of the specifics and really some of the comments from coaches and assistant coaches earlier in the day. But here's what I'll say. I have made reference in the past that Dabo Swinney kind of has a I don't know if I want to say reputation, but kind of a caricature of him around the rest of the country, right? He's a bit of a yokel. He's kind of corny. He's kind of cheesy, whatever. But I will also say this, like yesterday when he was done and they shut down the lights and, you know, the Ross and the boys were like, all right, everybody, we're over, go. Dabo sat up on that podium and he talked to the media for another 10, 12 minutes. And it was, laughing and joking and catching up and filming birthday cameo videos or whatever. Like, that's the Dabo Swinney that makes it very difficult for me to come in here and be a harsh critic of his performance.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's funny you say that. I actually had that conversation yesterday after I left. I have a mutual friend with Dabo, and he told me he played with Dabo at Alabama, and he told me, he said, hey, look, when you're there tomorrow, tell him I said, hey. And Joel, a friend of mine, I walked up to Dabo and said, hey, Joel told me he was going to get mad if I didn't tell you, hey. And that spurred, and I was just going to leave it at that and leave. Well, Dabo then for 5 more minutes, was talking about the guy that I know and how they used to play together at Alabama, and just he wanted to see a picture of his son. And listen, you're exactly right. For all the crap that he gets, he makes it really hard to dislike him, because I picked up the phone when I left and I talked to Joel, a buddy of mine who played at Alabama with Dabo, and I said, hey, how many coaches in the country after their press conference is over will shoot the you-know-what with you for the next 15 minutes? And he said, there's not many. And Dabo along the way is for as successful as Dabo's been in the industry, Dabo hasn't lost his personality. He hasn't lost his true identity, and he hasn't lost what makes Dabo Dabo. And I think that's why he's so liked at Clemson.
Yeah, I've said many times over the years on this station, Cole Bryson, like, there's a national perspective. As somebody who hosts a national show, I'm on national shows around the week in different spots doing interviews, and I get that a lot. Like, Dabo's got the NIL critics and the portal critics. And I think it is very fair to still be critical of him, even if you like the guy. But I tell Clemson fans around here, you shouldn't give a damn what anybody else outside of Clemson thinks about this guy, because all of the players that have, and you've heard this, you've experienced, you've talked to him, Cole Bryson, all the players from years and years and years of playing for Dabo that constantly line up to tell you how good this dude is. When they shut the lights off yesterday, and they do that so the cameras in the back can't keep filming, right? It's over. When I watch that guy sit up there and chuckle and laugh and share stories and memories and call out different media members by name, etc., it's just like, that's the dude that Clemson fans want to prop up. And he's a dude that it is easy to want him to be successful so that can continue.
Well, the reality of it is that doesn't happen. And you know this, you've been in other markets. That doesn't happen many places, right? The small town feel of Clemson and what you're able to do with the access and the SIDs and the coaches, and what we did yesterday and sat around and played EA25 in basketball with Lorenzo Ward, who was the defensive coordinator at South Carolina, and Cade Klubnik, and all these guys just stroll in. The culture there, you don't get many places. And you know what we talk about all the time, the selling point. I think when recruits come in, and I think when people see that and they see the atmosphere and the family vibes and how laid back everybody is, but they also have expectations, I think it sells itself. I really do.
We're talking with Cole Bryson, host of Wire to Wire with Cole Bryson and Diesel. They'll be on today from 3 to 7. There'll be more thoughts and more sound from yesterday. There was something else I found, a couple more things I found interesting about that presser, Cole Bryson. One of them was they brought up, of course, we had the story a couple of weeks ago that ESPN and the ACC asked Clemson to move the Saturday game against South Carolina to a Friday night, and Clemson just straight up said no. My thought was, and I'm not entirely not believing that this is still true. My thought was, they have 2 lawsuits against the ACC. Why in the blue hell would they do anything that the ACC requested of them that makes their life more difficult? But then Dabo gave an interesting answer that kind of plays along with what you just pointed out, which is, hey, listen, the people around here, Saturdays in Death Valley matter, right? Like, and especially that Saturday, not just that it's rivalry weekend, but it's Thanksgiving weekend. You got students who maybe weren't going to plan on coming back to campus till Saturday for the game. You got people who run businesses in and around Clemson, South Carolina that rely on Saturdays to get them through it, etc. I still think it was a bit of a bird from Clemson to the ACC as these lawsuits play out. But damn if he didn't dress that up in a really respectable answer.
No, there's no question. I agree with you. And when it comes to Dabo and what's going on with the lawsuits, he's quick to dodge, he's quick to deflect. But on the Friday night front, I think he's earned that right. And I did think the answer was interesting as well. The only thing that I was thinking was, like the way Dabo carries himself, the way that he runs the program, the way that he pretty much runs a lot of the athletic department as a whole, because you heard it yesterday. Graham Neff called Dabo and asked Dabo what to do on that situation with ESPN and playing on Friday night, Black Friday. And listen, the reality of it is Dabo made the decision, right? Graham Neff didn't make the decision. Dabo made the decision. If Dabo wanted to play, he would have played. He told everyone in the media room yesterday, if Beamer and those guys want to play next year on Black Friday, we're good with it. We're just not doing it here. What my point is, I think he's earned that right. We talk about in the NBA a lot, guys like Steph Curry and LeBron earning the right to go and banter with the officials and argue calls. Dabo, if he hadn't won 2 national championships, would he be a little bit different of a guy at Clemson right now? I definitely think he would. However, those 2 national championships still hold such strong weight that he can pretty much do what he wants as long as it's in line with what their ideology of the program is. And, that final call talking about playing on Black Friday, I think that was 100% up to him.
That's probably fair. We are talking with Cole Bryson, host of Wire to Wire, here on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan of State. Got a few more minutes here with CB before we got to let him go do his real job before his real job. I did appreciate Cole Bryson, and I was going to save this for last, but why the hell not? I appreciate immensely that you asked him about his 92 speed on the 92 Alabama Crimson Tide team, which made its appearance on the College Football 25 game. And more importantly, the fact that he hit you right back with some people slept on me. Incredible moment.
You know what? I do not think that there's a player or a coach in the country. I don't know. Maybe Nick Saban's not, but I think that everyone's enthralled right now by EA 25. I would bet that Dabo's played it. I really would. I would bet somehow, some way Dabo's already played it. And I did not know that you could go back and play with teams of the past. That's pretty amazing. I haven't got it yet. We played it right there in the facility yesterday. But I thought his most impressive speed would be him running down the hill at game day, right?
Yeah. In fact, isn't that what he said? I think they got my down the hill speed.
Yeah, that's right. He's always 100 miles ahead of everybody else. So it's really cool. I don't think we talked about this yesterday. I don't know all the legalities behind it. Some of the media members were talking about it yesterday, something I need to do a little bit of research on. But for whatever reason, I've been told that head coaches' names and their picture, I guess, isn't in the game for whatever reason. You have to create your own coach. I don't know what the reasoning is with contracts or whatever. You would think that, the coaches had enough money to be able to go and be in a video game. I'm not sure what the reason behind that is, though.
Because the players will accept $75 in a copy of the game. Probably not Dabo, but we'll find out. All right, earlier in the day, because you were obviously there, I showed up after the show in time for the Dabo presser, but you were there earlier in the day for some of the assistant coaches and coordinators that came out. I have no doubt that Cade Klubnik was probably asked about 13,000 times yesterday. Were there any highlights from comments about Cade, any analysis on Cade from coaches that stood out to you?
Well, yeah, I think the general consensus was from Garrett Riley, not Lincoln, like I said yesterday, and the other offensive coaches on Cade. Well, and you heard Dabo say this yesterday. They're all on the same page. They're singing the same tune, but they're looking at this as year 2, right? Yeah, they lost pieces. Everybody does. However, you bring back Garrett Riley, you bring back Cade Klubnik. Everyone's looking at this as a jump, as a leap year for Riley, Klubnik, and the rest of this offense, especially the receiving core. And the receiving core, the tight end group, we talked to Richardson, Coach Richardson yesterday, a couple of the other receiving coaches. The tight end group last year, they weren't exactly thrilled with their performance, their production. The wide receiver group, I asked, I can't remember who it was. I asked one of the assistants. I talked to so many of them, they run together. I asked one of the assistants yesterday about the wide receiver group, especially how it directly impacts Cade Klubnik, like you asked. And the leadership in the wide receiver room was something that I don't think was there last year from talking to the assistant coaches. And that, directly impacts the quarterback because, the quarterback's throwing to those receivers and they all have chemistry. And, I think that another year in the system for Cade will pay dividends. However, I go back to what Dabo said yesterday. I think he said it perfectly. We've seen improvement throughout the offseason, throughout the spring and summer from Cade. We've seen what we need to see. However, Dabo said it. He's got to go let that translate to on the field because all of what we've seen, and I'm speaking in Dabo terms now, all of what they've seen means nothing if that doesn't translate to game day. And you heard him yesterday. We're going to find out real quick, right? As they start off with Georgia. So I think that's where Clemson fans are still uneasy. And I'm not saying Cade Klubnik doesn't have it between the ears because I think he does in a way. However, anybody can be good, over there at the practice facility. Anybody can be good in these 7-on-7s throughout the spring and the summer. Anybody can be in shape, but that translating to the field against Kirby Smart and the best team in the country, I think that's where there's still a huge cause of concern for Clemson fans.
What was, if I asked you to tell me one or two things specifically from coaches, not just ping pong tables are very nice and we'd like one here at the Fan Upstate Studios in case anybody happens to be listening. What did you get out of the open house yesterday that you would say would be the most impactful to Clemson fans?
It's a great question. I think that talking to, I'll tell you this, you can eliminate Wes Goodwin. Wes Goodwin, for as nice as a guy as he is and for as great of a defensive coordinator as I think he will be, he's not a media-friendly guy. He just doesn't enjoy doing the interviews. I can't even play him on air. He's just very short-spoken. So there was nothing that he said that's going to rah-rah Clemson fans, right? So it would have to be on the offensive side of the ball. Again, not trying to take shots at him, but he's just not a media guy. That's just not his, cup of tea. The offensive side of the ball, I think what Clemson fans should really look forward to is they brought back several assistant coaches like Coach Luke, Coach Rump. And there are several coaches. I mean, I asked the same question yesterday to 2 or 3 different coaches, assistant coaches on the staff who had a previous stint at Clemson, left to another school, left to another pro. A couple of them went to the NFL. Coach Rump, Chris Rump was in the NFL for a long time. Came back to Clemson. There is a and you can hear this on my Twitter. I tweeted out a video of Chris Rump answering this question. There is a very high prestige right now about the way Dabo still runs the program, regardless of the narrative with him and the portal and the NIL. People still want to be a part of the Clemson program. Does that translate to wins in December and January? Not always. However, talking to the assistant coaches and hearing that there are coaches on the staff that get calls from NFL teams week in and week out, and that other coaches in the NFL have inquired and inquire on a weekly basis about, hey, if any job comes open at Clemson, call me because I want it. So that, to me, was the most overwhelming thing that I took away that Clemson fans should be excited about, that, hey, we still have that pristine, we still have that culture that's in place that people want to be a part of. They just have to find that piece that bridges the gap between in this new era of college football, that bridges the gap between that amazing culture and that strong culture. And you lay that brick down to connect so people can walk over and get back to a national championship. That's what they're there for. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're not there to have fun and play ping pong and be in a great facility. They're there to win national championships. And the last few years, they just haven't been a contender. Dabo said it yesterday. They've been good. They just haven't been great. And if they can find that missing link to close the gap and get them back, then I think all the worries in the world are off of the shoulders of Tiger fans all of a sudden, and everything's right in Clemson. However, finding that little link, that little piece, that little Lincoln log. I don't know if you played Lincoln logs as a kid. Finding that little gap is the most important part.
All right, last one, Cole, and then we'll let you go. Get back to your real life. There was something that kind of grabbed my attention yesterday. I'm sure you felt the same way. As soon as we sat down and as soon as Dabo came out and sat down, I started a timer on my phone to see over under 3 minutes when the first transfer portal question was going to get asked. And it was just over, shockingly enough, but Dabo had an answer. And I'm not saying he hasn't given this answer before, but I have not heard it phrased this way. He said, look, we get a bunch of guys who want to be here, so we don't lose a bunch of guys to the portal. If we don't lose a bunch of guys to the portal and we recruit guys who want to be here, it's not so much that we won't work the portal. It's that we don't have any spots to work the portal, right? Like we're not gonna run guys out. Guys want to be here. It's not that we're adverse to the portal or anti the portal. It's just that we don't have the roster spots to make portal moves. We've got the guys in here that we want already. I heard that defense, Cole Bryson, and like the part of me that really likes Dabo wants to 100% believe it. And then there's the part of me that sits behind a microphone and has to be critical and objective about a program that goes, yeah, okay. Did you catch that? And where did you fall on it?
So I did. I think that, in my opinion, I think that statement from Dabo is true. I do think he's right. However, I think that it goes hand in hand with NIL. And one of his exact quotes yesterday was, and I quote, if NIL is the factor, we're probably not going to get them. If it is a factor, we've got a good shot. The reason I think those two go hand in hand is if there are kids on the roster that aren't any good. Well, let me back up. If there are kids on your roster that aren't leaving, well, guess what? I think that NIL and the portal go hand in hand if you have to make room for a guy that you go out and you offer boatloads, sums of money to, and you've got to get this NIL, you've got to get this kid out of the portal by using NIL. Well, then all of a sudden you make room. You figure out, you know what? There's some fat that we have to trim. Dabo doesn't trim a lot of fat. Right. And tell me if you think I'm wrong on that, but it doesn't seem like on that roster year in and year out, there's a lot of fat trimming that goes on. So if you're not trimming fat, there's not room to go out and get guys. And because his philosophy on NIL is if it's the factor, no. If it's a factor, maybe. If it's the factor, they're going to have to write the check and go out and find the money. I just think those things go hand in hand. And, it's something that when I heard the answer, do I 100% agree that it's right? No, but I do think he's right in the sense of the math and them losing guys. I just think that it doesn't surprise me. I'll say that.
Yeah, it was interesting what he said when it comes to recruiting a guy. If NIL is the factor, we're probably not going to get that guy. If it's a factor, we've got as much of a chance as anybody else. And it was kind of implied. I don't think he said it directly, but it kind of danced around. If it is a type of dude that is NIL before everything else, we don't want that guy here anyway. And that is kind of a part of the overall philosophy. Cole, I've said a number of times, this year to me is a statement year for Dabo Swinney, because if Clemson wins and they make it into the playoff and they win the ACC, or maybe they get to the ACC title game and lose it, but they're still a playoff team, then I think you got to look and go, okay, maybe Dabo's philosophy isn't quite as doom and gloom as we've all made it. But if the opposite happens, if they drop another 4 games, if they don't make it into the playoff, if they're not an ACC title picture at the end of the year, then I think at that point you've got to go, that philosophy is not working. That strategy, that plan's not working. And then the uncomfortable conversation comes down the pipe.
Listen, I don't even think it'll take that long. If they, in my opinion, if they get boat raced in that first August game in Atlanta, Georgia, I think to Clemson fans, I think the season will be a wash. Yeah, you can go ahead and still win the ACC, but what does that matter? What does it matter if you go beat Cal and Virginia Tech and, Wake Forest is stepmom, but you can't beat the best of the best? I don't care if you win the ACC. that Georgia game, that's going to be all I need to see on the 2020. And I know Dabo yesterday said, well, it's not about that game. We still have 12 more, 11 more games. I understand that coaches talk, but if you go out there and get boat raced, I have seen all I need to see.
Good enough for me. Good enough for me. Cole Bryson hosts Wire to Wire alongside Diesel. It'll be on this afternoon from 3 to 7 for the breakdown from yesterday's Media Day as we all get set for ACC Media Day next week. Appreciate you, big dog. Thank you, Cole.
Thanks, Rob.
You got it. Cole Bryson is my guy. Quick break, quick segment to wrap it up when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, I got to fix the clock. I was screwed up. Give me just a minute. I will be right back. Afternoon. The great Lonzo will return to us tomorrow. Looking forward to have him back in the saddle. Of course, we have got Rashad Beard of the Panther Nation podcast who will join us tomorrow on the show. We'll catch up on the Carolina Panthers, the process, the blueprint YouTube show. Just 2 episodes this year. I did get a chance to finish that up last night, so we will check in with him and his thoughts on that. They've done a couple of mailbags over the past couple of days on the Panther Nation pod, so we'll listen to what Rashad has to say tomorrow. And tomorrow, of course, the great one being back in the building, we will talk some wrestling here on the show as Fight Club makes its triumphant return tomorrow. And it's not just wrestling. We got boxing, we got MMA. We have got a lot going on right now in the world of combat sports. So we will talk about that coming up tomorrow with the return of the great one. We will have some more sound. By the way, if you want to hear more of what Dabo Swinney had to say at yesterday's open house. I did go live on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/thefanupstate. You can go straight to the page from there, and should be posted in the video section of the page is the full discussion yesterday that Dabo Swinney gave when we were live at Media Day. I put up about 48 minutes worth of that press conference, and Dabo went in depth about a lot of stuff. So you get a chance to go listen to that if you go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/thefanupstate. Make sure you follow me on social media at The Rob Brown Show across all of the things. So make sure that you're following me across the social media sphere at The Rob Brown Show, and everybody at The Fan Upstate. I do want to, and I mean this sincerely, I want to thank all of you guys for being with me the last couple of days as I have been rolling predominantly solo here on the show. It is much, much easier and more fun when you guys are a part of the show. So for those of you that have jumped in, for those of you that were actively participating in the show, I sincerely appreciate it. And for those of you that were not, do that more. Like, I don't know, maybe tomorrow on the show, because this one is over and it's time to go home. Have a lovely rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the show. I appreciate it sincerely. Do not drink and drive. I'll punch you in the face. We'll see you back here tomorrow to do it all over again, but better on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, boys and girls, thank you all for being here. Those of you that hung out, I really sincerely do appreciate it. Lonzo will be back tomorrow, so we'll see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here, and goodbye.